Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Ichigo got Squad Zero's Zanpakuto Part 8. Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video. Go support and follow the AEthereal Devastation for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. Let's start this video. Why have we all been called here? One of the women of the Black Watch asks. Roughly 21,000 women are standing in a large shifting crowd within a single large courtyard. In front of them is the central keep of the castle stronghold of Wallace, which is built in a simple style without grand ostentation. There are no proud banners or ornamentation like there would be in the Sirte. Wallace stands upon a balcony upon the side of the tower facing the crowd. I wait at the castle wall for Wallace to call for me. He beckons, and I appear beside him on the balcony a moment later, looking down at the women, even as the rest of my division uses Shunpo to move, so they stand in the air at my side. You have been called here for a simple reason, but I have a question before I reveal that reason, Wallace says. What question? Another woman asks. Do you wish to fight Hollows? Wallace asks them. Do you wish to actually use the blades born from your soul? To fight as warriors rather than be forced to stay home and never take up your swords? Of course, the woman replies immediately. There are nods and shouts of agreement from the others. Are the laws of the Black Watch changing? No. Our laws aren't changing, Wallace replies. Then why ask? The woman demands furiously. If you mean to dash our hopes, then I will kill you for it, father or not. Allison, I wasn't yet finished. I said the laws of the Black Watch weren't changing. However, are you all willing to leave home and go elsewhere in order to be able to fight? Wallace asks carefully. Yes. The woman, Allison, shouts. She is a tall, red-haired woman. Her hair hangs down to mid-back and she is very clearly strong. Her muscles are evident and clearly defined, though not obscenely obvious. Sapphire eyes blaze excitement as she gazes at Wallace. Where are we going? Is there a representative of theirs here, or are you working on hope? Ah, I forgot I had cast a concealing kid for a proper dramatic reveal of my division, though kept my presence evident to Wallace through careful Ryatsu manipulation. Reminded, I drop the kid. You're joining the Sirte Guard. You'll all be Japanese Shinigami instead of Black Watch Reapers, Wallace explains. Why? Allison asks as she looks at me. I tower above Wallace and nod approvingly as I meet her gaze. She'll do nicely as an officer. I can feel she has Bankai and she is very clearly eager to fight. They took 25% fatal losses to aid the Black Watch in the fight with Avalon earlier, Wallace elaborates. So we're replacing their losses and adding to their ranks? Allison asks, and Wallace nods in reply. And we're going to actually fight, not just be sidelined as unfit to fight. Barely 100 of my 5,000 strong division were male before this battle, I reply, and her eyes light with eagerness. Maybe half of them survived the battle. We have trainees who are male and slated to join the division, but I doubt we'll ever have anything approaching an even balance of male to female, I sigh. True. Yamamoto Tachem here decided that massive hot springs were an excellent way to relax and turned 4 training fields into permanent springs where the division rests after a long day. Plus we get other benefits, like being in the division of the Saudachim's great-grandson and probable heir, being in one of the prestigious front lines combat divisions, and a lot of other things, Nanao explains. The other combat divisions are almost entirely male, but everyone wants to join one of the 4 combat divisions, so. Pretty much no males are going to join up due to being bound elsewhere, Allison realizes. So, we're going to be out on the front lines, fighting in major battles, given the same chance to risk our lives everyone else in the division has. Correct, I reply. You, like the rest of my division, will be expected to adhere to our discipline, our methodology in combat, our traditions. In return, you will be on the front lines of conflict with Hollows and the Shinigami organizations allying with the Spirit King, who was once my organization's patron and is now its enemy, I explain. How do I sign up to join? Allison demands. I leap down to the courtyard, my weight cracking the stones as I land. Let's see if you're worthy, I reply, and unshackle a portion of my power, just enough to test the potential recruits. I increase it slowly until Allison is gritting her teeth and most of the crowd, those with only Shikai, have dropped to their knees. All of you pass the test to join, I tell the crowd. Then I look at Allison and the 20 or so others with Bankai. Stay standing, I order them, and unshackle almost half of the power available to me without unsealing my blade, not counting of course the power needed to keep me stable due to the space marine organs that have grown within my body. Allison winces, sweat rolling down her face. She growls at me, and I nod approvingly at her spirit. She begins to shake under the strain, but forces herself to remain standing, as do the others with Bankai. After a minute, I rain my Ryatsu in once more. What was that for? Allison snarls. Congratulations on earning the rank of seated officer in my division, I reply. All my officers have the second release, what we call Bankai. All of my division is required to have at least the first release. So I'm an officer now? Allison asks. Privileges of rank and everything. Correct. 50 Shinigami to each combat team and 1 officer commands each team, I answer. You will be the one responsible to report to me on all details of your team's status and combat readiness, I elaborate. Your responsibilities will be many, but your privileges will be no small thing in trade. Are you willing to accept the burden of command? I ask and am hit with a missile. Thank you, Allison babbles as she tackles me, the rest of my new officers not far behind, those who get to me first grabbing me in a hug and trying to crush my armor beneath their strength. I don't care about the privileges, being given field command is all I want, Allison says, the others nodding even as the other females of the Black Watch begin to rise from the ground, looking upon their new officers. I'll be loyal, you can count on that, Allison assures me. Good, I reply. Nanao and other Shinigami are descending, massive crates being levitated by Kiden descending alongside them. When the crates touch the ground, they are opened and brand new Shihikishima removed from them and begin to be handed out. Don your new garb and be recognized as members of my division, I say as even more Shinigami descend, levitating frames created from 2 long beams horizontally aligned to each other, connected by dozens of poles which double as armor racks, and I make a mental note to thank our smiths for making 20 times more armor than was actually needed by the Sirite guard. Just in case it became necessary. Is that armor for us? One of my new officers asks. I nod. I'm Alexis, by the way. Allison's sister, she elaborates. She is tall and red-haired, like her sister, but she cut her hair only to shoulder length and has green eyes to Allison's blue. She shares the clear signs of working hard to build muscle, though, and seems eager to get the armor on. Yes. It will be crafted to appropriately fit later. For now, the kid meant to make sure it fits, even if a rough fit will have to do, I say. I'll take a rough fit over no armor at all. I've wanted to wear armor for decades and go out and fight. So, the robes are the last part of the new clothing that we put on, right? Alexis asks. I nod in answer, and she grins. The armor rack settle onto the ground, every last set of armor painted in my colors. Red and black, emerald and gold trim decorating the armor. Weapons racks containing various spirit weapons settle onto the ground moments later. All members of my division wear armor, carry spirit weapons, and bear their Zanpakuto at all times. Am I clear? I demand of my new recruits. Alexis is already cradling an Ajinata as if it's her firstborn. Sir, you are very clear, Allison replies, sliding a pair of tiger claws into place on her hands. I am Ichigo Teichin, Yamamoto Teichin, or Teichin now that you are members of my division, I inform her. You will need to address me in the correct fashion, rather than what you might be used to. Officers who get invited to the parties I hold for friends 2 or 3 times a week call me Ichigo, I tell her. Invitations are won through valor or doing your job well. Understood, Teichin, Alexis says immediately. Good. Now, there is no such thing as preferential treatment in my division. Not from me, anyways. There is also no such thing as transferring divisions, at least for my division. You don't get pampered because of a name, you get pampered because of skill, I growl. At work, you are a professional. The division stands together, no matter what. If another member of the 8 gets into a fight in a bar, what do? I demand of Alexis. I join the fight, if I wasn't the one who started it, of course, she answers. Allison looks aghast at her sister's comment. Don't mind my sister, she isn't one for alcohol or picking fights. I'm the one of us who is like that. Got it, I reply. All members of the 8th are expected to have a head for alcohol. I like it myself, and there are 3 bars within a stone's throw of the barracks if you leave from the front gates. Leaving from the back gate or either side gate brings the number of bars within a stone's throw of the barracks up to 22, and another will open soon, I comment, and Alexis looks ecstatic. So, we're expected to go out, fight, then come home and get a good drink? Alexis asks hopefully. Yes. I am something of a social person, so I often have the members of other divisions around. As for your tabs at bars, the guard pays half of them, and I say who pays the rest. You do your work well, I see to it that you're fed and have the leisure to get drunk, I answer. I think I'm in love, another of my new officers, looking similar enough to Allison and Alexis that she's probably a sister of theirs says. She, like her sisters, is clearly strong, her face cast in strong lines. She is classically beautiful, much like her sisters, and her hair is wild and unrestrained. She also matches my mane of reddish-orange hair in length, her own bloody red hair extending past her waist in length. Wallace mentioned that he had 9 daughters, so I'm not too surprised to see another so quickly. His blood is clearly strong to produce 3 wielders of Bankai among his daughters, and I noticed 2 more who are likely sisters to Allison and Alexis among my new officers with a quick glance. I'm Claire, by the way, she says. Her eyes are a strong amber, and she meets my eyes without hesitation. Believe me, most of the division practically worships Ichigo Teichm, Momo tells Claire. Really? Claire asks in reply. Most of my division are mixing with their new comrades, getting to know the people who will be replacing old friends in the ranks. Is it because of his power? He felt really strong when he released his full strength to test us for officer rank earlier. That wasn't his full strength, Urahara says. He proved himself well in combat earlier, hunting down and killing enemy paladins with single-minded focus. He is usually content to stay in the shadows, but he is definitely worthy of being numbered among my bodyguard. That was maybe a quarter of his full strength before he unseals his blades, provided he didn't have a lot of his power tied up with permanent kidm, Urahara elaborates, and Claire looks at me in sudden awe, as do all the other new recruits. The quarter? Alexis breathes. Yes, Urahara answers. I second your statement, Claire. We've always been the 2 of our sisters who are closest together, and that kind of power is no small draw. Plus, there is of course the benefits of his being the best commander we could probably hope for, Alexis declares. Teichm, Momo inquires, and I allow my armor to astralize. Alexis breathes in sharply as she looks at me. So far, I really like this guy, Claire says as she looks at me. Personality is important, of course, but I like his attitude so far, and I definitely like his looks. Besides, he had the good manners to grow his hair out to be like mine, she says, and I laugh softly at the remark. My hair is a challenge, I explain. I'm saying that no matter how good my enemy is, if they try and use the length of my hair against me, they'll be dead a heartbeat later. It's a declaration of skill and pride. In my division, more than a few people grow their hair out for the same reason I do, I tell her. Long hair is a privilege earned by combat skill among the 8. I see, Alexis comments, and she begins to grin as she looks at other division members. I think I'm going to like this division, Claire remarks. Good, I say, turning to join my division and getting to know our new members. All are beginning to don their new clothing, replacing the old. Before, the majority wore dresses or long skirts, unsuitable to fight in. Most are exulting in the change to their new clothes and are calling for their swords to be brought to them. Young boys, in training to join the Black Watch, are carrying the swords to their owners, and sheaths begin to be tied to the sashes of the hakama that are waiting to be donned once their owners are in full armor. Teichm, how are we going to set things up for integration? Momo asks. I know you're setting things up to recruit another 20,000 or so from carefully selected living targets, but training and integration into combat teams will take time, she mentions. We're not the only ones you'll need to integrate into your forces, Alexa says. Why? I ask. I am hoping I'm not going to get the answer I fear I'll get, as it would be an administrative nightmare. It'll be that already, but I'm hoping to avoid the worst possibilities. The Emerald Sentinels, Knights of the Red Dragon, and Avalon all share the same policy. Train females with power to use it to the fullest extent they're capable of, but don't let them fight. I know quite a few of those women, and they're just as eager to be allowed to fight as we are, Alexis elaborates. We have celebrations we invite members of the other organizations to as a standard part of the celebration, and sometimes they come. Also, the French organization, the Chevaliers de la Mort, is just as bad. Even Jeanne d'Arc didn't manage to get them to change when she joined them. Both of the Roman groups also keep females out of combat. Same policy in all 3 of those organizations, and I've met those women. They find out what you did for us, they'll make you take them on as well, Alexis lectures. How many? I ask, signaling for Nanao to prioritize recruitment from the other worlds. First, a question of mine, if it's allowed. Alexis asks, and I nod. Last reports were that each of your divisions maintained a strength of about 200 Shinigami apiece. How did you boost your numbers so rapidly? She queries. I didn't. Our strength is never allowed to slip below at least 1000 Shinigami per division, I begin the explanation. We have the vast majority of the other worlds among our responsibilities. Roughly 60% of the other worlds come under our jurisdiction, for various reasons, though we only claim parts of some of them, I continue. What are the reasons? Claire inquires, now obviously curious. Nanao is writing my explanation down, word for word, clearly so others can read her notes later. I nod in approval and call up the information I received both during my time as Shibakayan and in lectures from Yamajiji when he was making sure I knew all I needed to in case he was incapacitated and I had to step up and lead. One is that they're easiest to access from the Sirte. Some other worlds can only be accessed from certain places, either on this world or another of the other worlds, but all are easier to access in specific places. We have a lot of easy connections, thus we get thrown the work more often than not. Second, it's that we're the oldest organization. We've been doing the job, even if only loosely formed as we were before my great-grandfather created a single unified organization, for roughly 3,000 years longer than anyone else. About 8 or 9,000 years, all told, and we started taking responsibility for some of the other worlds a couple thousand years before we originally formed a single cohesive group. Third, some of those other worlds have resources we need, I begin. Like what? Allison asks. Abundances of spiritually aware potential recruits in some cases. Others contain wells of Reishi, spirit particles as you know them, which allow us to create power taps into the wells for our own purposes. Still others are connected to a spiritual plane of their own, where the materials needed to assist in the creation of Asauchi and spirit weapons, among them the materials needed for the original soul steel to be made, can be harvested in abundance. The fourth and final reason is that the world is necessary as part of our defensive structure against hollow incursions. We have a lot of Shinigami for that precise reason. Well, a lot more than most think we have anyways. We're smaller than most in pure numbers, but we have the strongest fighters when it comes down to it, I explain. So how many are there actually in the guard? Allison demands. All told, I'd say roughly 80,000 Shinigami, not counting you newcomers. About half have Shikai these days, and most of the rest are working on it. However, we're trying to quintuple our numbers before too long, I make the rough calculations. 8 accepts only the best among our ranks, plus there aren't as many female Shinigami going through the academy as might be desired. 1st, 2nd, and 11th are just as picky. The largest division is probably the 10th, while the smallest is definitely the 12th, I say as I run through the various facts. We don't try too hard to conceal our true numbers, it's just that those numbers are rarely all at home. For the 4 frontline combat divisions we do actively conceal the size of their ranks, as a security precaution. They're usually all gathered in one place, and if attacked, it's best to have the enemy not know what he's facing. Don't mention this to any Black Watch members, please. Of course, Allison replies. Why would I? I've been shackled by their insistence I avoid combat for decades, so I owe them nothing. Good. Even allies aren't to know of this, if possible, I explain with a small smile. Now, what about the numbers of Shinigami we'll have flooding into the 8th from those other 6 groups you mentioned? I get us back on topic. The other 3 groups in these islands have roughly 65,000 between them, if you're requiring Shikai, as you call it, Alexa says. I nod firmly in answer to her question. There would be maybe 5 or 6,000 more if you took all women who couldn't use Shikai from the 4 groups here, she states. I grit my teeth as I contest the decision mentally. You could send them to some other division, which has more of light combat and patrol duties, Alexa suggests. I'll throw them to the 10th, the 13th, and maybe some will go to the 5th or the 6th then, I decide. What about the French and Roman groups? You'd get maybe another 14 or 15,000 without Shikai, and another 80,000 or so with Shikai. That would be a pretty large boost to your numbers, Claire comments, and I nod slowly as I work over the problem in my head. We're going to need the numbers, Nanao says. New otherworlds are being found and must be claimed and garrisoned. The Rukongai districts are being filled out to what they should be, with each division being responsible for a lot more districts than we currently are, though you'd know better than me how many districts are planned, she says, fishing for information. The districts are currently in one of 4 quarters of the compass. North, east, south, or west are all possibilities. But now, we're returning to the original 16-section system. There's a lot of dead land between each of the areas of the Rukongai, enough for us to have the original 16-section system without being able to make smaller districts. In fact, the empty space will still be larger than the settled space, I answer, deciding to indulge her. My division members are groaning at the news. We need the room anyways. With the soul intake rising as it is currently, we won't be able to have them ready too soon, and they'll be inhabited before long. We're building to 160 districts for each division to look after in each section, I continue. So, 2,500 districts for our division alone to tend to? Nanao asks in horror. Yes, I say. We'll need a lot more than multiplying our numbers by 5 to keep up, I can already tell that much. However, we can't take a full 165 to 170,000. I want our numbers contained at 75,000 Shinigami at most, I order. Spread the ones with less potential among the other divisions. They'll still prove useful, I command. I'll help you get things brought under control with our group, Alexis offers. Good. I think we'll take enough from the Black Watch and those other groups to bring our numbers to a solid 25,000 if there's enough skilled warriors for it, I say. How fast could they be gotten here? Probably within a few days, Alexis answers. 8 has a challenging training course. We'll use that to get rid of those who don't live up to stand. We start in 1 week, I command. Nanao, can you organize to get the other trainees we need in that time? I ask hopefully. Bring our numbers to 50,000, counting the ones we select, right? Nanao asks, and I nod. Yes. I anticipated a need like this and have had profiles for almost 75,000 possible recruits waiting for the last couple of years. I'll pick the most promising third of them, and things should be fairly simple with them, she answers, and I decide I love having her as my lieutenant. Why will it be easy? I ask. Lisa had the same policy of keeping an eye on large numbers of possible recruits, and she found loopholes in a few laws to make it easier to get the most promising ready. They were connected to a Sauchi without their knowledge, and even if they weren't constantly carrying their blades, Kidden were used to keep the connection as strong as if they had their blades with them at all times. The spirits are already developed for most of them and awaiting Shikai. The potential students were trained by Shinigami sent in to prepare them in the basics of our art, given the right moral framework and physical training to prepare them. In a couple of cases where magic is more prevalent in that world, they were given the training necessary to start with Kidden, Nanao explains warily. So we have a full 25,000 potential recruits just waiting to be called fully to their duty. I ask. Nanao nods. Hi, Tachem. I just took Lisa's example though, Nanao says, then is cut off as I gather her up into a proper rib-crushing hug. I am ecstatic over having a lieutenant who actually anticipated the need we might have. Remind me to give her the same treatment, I say as I set her down a moment later. Her rib survived thanks to her armor, luckily. Hi, Tachem, Nanao says, grinning slightly. I'll put out the kill orders and have them brought to the 8th immediately. I take it we attack Avalon's base once our new recruits are fully trained. No. We train them after we finish Avalon off. We attack tomorrow, I respond. But this time, I'll be going in at full power, and I'm not going to be constricted by having to worry about the warriors of my division who are fighting near me. I will be able to go all out and unleash destruction the likes of which Avalon cannot imagine, I rumble, Rietsu rising as my blood rises. The Kenpachi will be unleashed, then? Nanao asks. Yes, I growl, hands beginning to tremble in anticipation as murder fills the air. The curse is stirring deep within, feeling that it is about to be unleashed. Yes, I exult, a laugh beginning to build as I anticipate the slaughter ahead of me. I am Kenpachi, and that has more meaning than anyone will ever know who does not bear our curse. What is this? Claire asks Nanao as several of the division's new recruits in my immediate vicinity begin to whimper in fear. The Kenpachi's curse. It's a kid linked permanently and irremovably to the Kenpachi. If a Kenpachi is defeated, or more usually killed, the curse passes on. Most Kenpachi have never had reliable control over the curse, and Ichigo is worse than most, at least in severity of the curse. The more suitable the host, the better the curse takes. It creates a nearly unstoppable berserker. The ones who the curse takes to the easiest are those who already like fighting, though. When the curse is upon a Kenpachi, assuming they aren't constantly under its influence, they're monstrously strong and violent. This is just a taste of what he'll be like tomorrow though. Tomorrow, the curse will be unleashed in full, and I plan to stay far away from him then. It's a bad idea to be near a raging Kenpachi, Nanao explains. So, he's a berserker then? Claire asks, and sighs in relief for some reason when Nanao nods. Why are you relieved? Momo queries. We're used to berserkers here. Some of the Black Watch members are like that, and everyone knows how to deal with them. When he's in the depths of his curse, the only thing he's really good for is pointing at the enemy and letting him reap a bloody harvest, right? Alexis replies and asks her own question, obviously used to certain rules for dealing with berserkers. No. The Kenpachi is meant to lead the 11th division, though there are 3 Kenpachi around at the moment. The 1st Kenpachi, the 11th and the 12th are all currently extant, with the 11th commanding the Kenpachi's division. He can command just fine still, it's just that he's not someone to be in front of, Nanao explains. The curse was never meant to degrade command abilities, it was instead meant to make an unstoppable warrior, someone who exults in bloodshed. An example to the other warriors of the Sirte Guard, someone who's always at the forefront of any fight and whose only desire is to kill as many enemies as possible, as quickly as possible. To that end, all Kenpachi are able to lead their division, as more warriors backing them up means more bloodshed. I understand, Alexa says, nodding as she begins to comprehend what the curse truly is. Nanao's explanation is not the full definition of the curse, nowhere near it in fact, but it's a convenient explanation that most can understand. If Nanao understood the true definition of the curse, she'd be a Kenpachi as well, but she doesn't. The curse is an aspect of death, I tell them, deciding to reveal a little more of what my curse truly is. An aspect of death, bound to the soul. Nanao inquires, nodding as it begins to make sense. Rage. Or bloodlust. Possibly destruction is the aspect of death that is bound to the Kenpachi. Something like that, I say. That aspect was purified, drawn forth and refined into its truest state. Then it was settled upon the Kenpachi to turn them into the first line of Sirte's defense and its first line of offense. The Soudichim is always the last to join the fight, while the Kenpachi is the first. All 4 combat divisions are meant to have a purpose, counting the 8th among them now. The first is the last line of defense. The second kills in the shadows, eliminating enemies before they can become troublesome and gathering information. The 11th are the first line of defense, meant to kill anything that attempts to attack the Sirte, or shock troops as they might be called. The other divisions are line troops, meant to be thrown into battle and serve as required. 8 are likely to fill the much needed slot of elite soldiers, meant to assist the line soldiers, or possibly reinforce the 11th. There may also be some other role we're fitted into, I say. So you were line troops before Yamamoto Taichin joined you? Allison asks Nanao. Yes. The captain defines the division. The 1st, 2nd, and 11th have never changed, but every other division has undergone multiple changes to their combat doctrine as new captains took over, Nanao explains. This is actually the first change for the 8th, but it's proving to be a major change. Even if we went back to serving under Kumraku Taichin right now, I think we'd remain pretty much as we've become. The momentum towards this particular change is immense. 11th actually did change while under the command of the 10th Kenpachi, but the moment the 11th Kenpachi took over, it shifted back to what it was always meant to be, and originally was. 10th and 6th serve as the enforcers of the law these days, but they haven't been that way for most of their existence. I understand fully, Allison assures Nanao. I'll go get things underway to organize this mess. Thank you, I say, glaring at the chaos that was supposed to be the well-ordered issuing of gear to our new recruits. Try to get things underway as quickly as possible. I want us back at the Sirte the moment every potential new recruit is brought in, so training can begin. Anyone with Bankai, we're keeping. Everyone else, there's no guarantee, I state flatly. We'll still work for our place, Alexa says with a glare at Allison, who had relaxed at hearing she was guaranteed a spot in the 8th. Good. I think you'll be joining the senior ranks of seated officers before long with that kind of attitude, Alexis, I declare, and she smiles brightly. I take it familiarity on my part is acceptable. I ask a moment later. Of course. I'm a soldier of yours, and I prefer that you call me by my name, rather than being polite anyways, she answers. Very well. Now, if you could assist in bringing order to this particular mess, you can consider yourself invited to my next party, I say, deciding to get a better gauge of her in a social situation. She signals acknowledgement as she is already wading into the chaos and settling her starting fights to get things underway. Belligerent, proud, and hard-working. She'll be an excellent officer. Ordered lines begin to form as she forces discipline into the crowd, and others belatedly begin to follow her example as her sisters and the other new officer candidates begin to instill discipline themselves. Alexis will go far, I think, I say to Nanao. Allison bears watching though. I don't like the mixed signals I'm getting from her, Nanao replies. Agreed. We have a few Shinigami who want officer postings and are working on the Bankai requirement, right? I ask, and she nods. Have a couple of them assigned to her combat team. I want eyes kept on her that will make sure she doesn't slip up. Hi, Taichin. I think all of them will take to their new culture fairly well though, Nanao offers as an observation. Alexis, now that her job is done, is speaking to a junior Shinigami who doesn't have anything to do at the moment. I almost move in to assign them tasks, then decide against it and use a minor kid for sensory enhancement to let me hear what they're saying. Why is someone who is going to become an officer speaking to me? The Shinigami asks. May, a member of the first combat team, if I remember right. I might not have any work to do, but that doesn't mean you can waste my time looking for gossip about the Taichin. I might have a task assigned soon, after all, she declares. Kurenai, her team commander, is approaching. I catch Kurenai's eye and shake my head slightly. I want to see how this goes. I'm not interested in gossip, Alexis replies indignantly. What do you want? May asks after a moment, now interested. Lessons. I'm being introduced to a new culture, I need to know the basic manners. Especially since Yamamoto Taichin invited me to one of those parties of his. I also need to know the language, so no one has to humor me and converse in English. I have the basics of the language, but I need to know more about reading, writing, and speaking, Alexis practically pleads. Kurenai is nodding in approval, apparently having used the same kidma I did to listen in. Yamamoto Taichin invited you to one of his parties? May asks, gulping slightly. Yes. I take it that's no small thing in the division. Alexis asks rhetorically, and May shakes her head firmly in response. Most of the division is constantly trying to win an invitation, so it's a big deal for them. Inviting you is how he gets the measure of a person. Showing yourself to advantage could lead to promotion, and it will definitely lead to friendships with high-ranking officers. Being a poor guest would be very bad for your career, May answers. That's why I need to learn manners, as well as more about the language, Alexis says. Will you teach me? I think Mei has more than enough time to teach you, yes, Kurenai says, joining the group. Such consideration is very well done. I'm Kurenai and I'll be a fellow officer of yours. I lead 1st Combat Team. If you need help, feel free to come to me. Thank you, Kurenai-senpai, Alexis replies, bowing slightly. I did get the honorific correct, didn't I? She asks a moment later. Yes, you did, Kurenai replies with a pleased tone in her voice. I'll gladly teach you, Mei says. But I'll need to know your name. I'm Mei, and I would prefer if you avoid using honorifics when speaking to me. I was a Rukongai street rat originally, and being referred to with terms of respect doesn't feel right. Plus, you outrank me. I'm Alexis of Clan Wallace, soon to be officer of the 8th Division. However, don't think I'll let any guarantee I have of rank get to my head and cause me to slacken my training, Mei, Alexis replies. I nod in approval of her actions so far, assured that I have at least one excellent new officer candidate. Hopefully, I'll get a couple more good senior officers from this batch of candidates. She'll go very far, Nanao. Slaughter for 7th seat to start and let's hope she works her way up, I say to her. Hi, Taichin, Nanao answers, noting my orders. I definitely like you, Alexis, Kurenai says, nodding in approval. There's going to be a gathering when we get back to the Sirite of a bunch of girls who are friends of mine. Some of them are senior officers in other divisions and I think I'd like to introduce you. I gladly accept your offer, Kurenai-senpai, Alexis answers cheerfully. I promise not to embarrass you with my conduct. Excellent. Mei, begin her lessons immediately, Kurenai orders, then begins to head my way. She'll do well, Kurenai states when she arrives. She'll start in 7th seat, I respond. After that it's up to her how far she goes. I think she'll be going fairly far though, possibly all the way to captain in some other division, I'm Muse, and Kurenai shakes her head. She doesn't want a captain's command, I think. She just wants to fight and to learn from the best fighter she can. I think she'll push herself to become as strong as possible, but won't leave the 8th. I'm pretty sure she'll be like a Kaku in her loyalties, Kurenai responds, and I raise an eyebrow as I consider the possibility. If she's like a Kaku, it would be a waste to not have her in my guard, I decide. We'll see how things go, though. Fair enough, Kurenai answers. Now, what do we need to plan tomorrow's attack? The list of the Avalon Knight orders that are most likely to continue siding with the Spirit King if we take out Mordred and possibly the entire order Mordred leads, depending on how corrupt they are, I say. Whoever is next in line to take over from Mordred as leader of Avalon might be as bad as him. We need to find an order that is willing to turn neutral or join us and make peace with the Black Watch. Find me one like that and we'll do whatever is necessary to make sure that order comes to power. Understood, Ichigo. I'll call for aid from the 11th as well, shall I? Kurenai asks, and after a moment of thought, I nod. I have the authorization to call for aid, and Zaraki fighting alongside me will make my job a lot easier. Yes. Considering the ability of Mordred Zanpakuto, that's wise, I respond, and swiftly move to answer the unspoken question. Clarent, Mordred Zanpakuto, allows him, as a secondary ability, to designate one enemy at a time as his opponent. That opponent will be defeated by him, even if the defeat costs him his life. I don't feel like testing out if he can get that to work on me, so I prefer a 2- or 3-pronged attack against him. Single combat would be risky, I inform Kurenai. Got it. I'll call for the second as well then. Jackum Rakenben used by both you and Soifan would be able to take him out without too much trouble, Kurenai offers. Good idea, I reply, liking how that plan will probably work out. Also, the second can counter Avalon's rangers, hopefully. True. A covert duel, and won't that be interesting, Kurenai laughs. I'm going to go make sure things continue running smoothly with the issuing of gear to the new recruits. Good. I'll speak to you later, Kurenai, I say, then turn and head to inspect the barracks designated for the use of the 8th until we leave. A captain's work isn't done each day until his division is fed and asleep, so I had best make sure we have meals and beds arranged for us before I make any assumptions about my workload. Our targets. Soifan asks as myself, my personal guard, Soifan, Zaraki, and a few officers of the 2nd, 8th, and 11th convene to discuss our plan of attack. We are roughly half an hour away from Avalon proper. Unlike with us, there is no central area, no Sirite to be a center of the Rukongai districts. Instead, the fortress strongholds of the Knight Orders are scattered throughout Avalon's Rukongai. The Black Watch has a similar setup, which is slightly irritating for me. In the Sirite or the Inner Rukongai, you have a navigational guide thanks to the towers of the 1st Division barracks, which allow a person to easily find their way around if they have a general idea where things are in relation to those towers. In the Middle and Outer Rukongai districts, other landmarks are clear. Here, there are far fewer landmarks than there should be. We have to eliminate 7 Knight Orders which are totally corrupt, I say in disgust. How could they have fallen so far from their purpose and honor? Mordred has thoroughly twisted the Knights of the Round Table, so there it's a case of leave none alive. Same for the other 6 as well, actually. There are no innocents there. What of the families of the Knights? Lily asks. Their families all reside in a separate stronghold of the Order and are forbidden to leave. The women of Avalon who have trained to become knights but are forbidden to fight are all held in a single fortress themselves. They do not leave on pain of death, I explain. I see, Lily hisses in utter disgust. The other 6 orders are the Knights of the Black Blade, the Knights of the Eternal Dawn, the Knights Ignis, the Knights of the Golden Star, the Knights of the Flawless Sun, and the Knight Sanctus, I say, and Lily snarls at the name of the last order. How dare they lay claim to such a title? She demands. What is their temperament? They are cruel butchers. From every report we have, they are beings who would make Vladimir Teeps himself turn his face away in disgust, I say to her in sorrow for the news I must give to her. She is purer and more innocent than many I have seen. Now, I see her face twist into a snarl of hate, so foreign to her. I will kill them personally. As the Queen of Knights, I will end their blasphemy against the title of knight, Lily vows. No, Lily, I command reluctantly. I will not have you taint your blade with their blood. Shinigami have pride and honor. To respect the pride of fellow Shinigami, we fight them with steel in hand in open combat. But these so-called knights do not deserve to be called Shinigami. Instead, they are merely rabid mongrels and will be put down as such, I reassure her. I understand, Ichigo, Lily replies after a moment. You are correct, it would do me dishonor to match them blade to blade. Soifan, we will see to them first. Jackum Rakenben will be unleashed upon them, I order. Soifan's lip curls, evidently displeased with this. She dislikes using her Bankai. Why must my Bankai be unleashed? She demands. Jackum Rakenben is actually a logical Bankai for Suzumabachi. It goes from killing one foe in 2 hits to killing many foes in 1 hit. It gains range capability and strikes without warning, so long as you stay a ways away to avoid the opponent noticing you before you fire. It has a potential range of up to 50 kilometers, and the missile, once locked onto a target, tracks the Reiatsu of that target until it hits them, then explodes. The missile cannot be destroyed, and I've tried, I inform her. She doesn't like her Bankai, so apparently she never bothered to figure this out. It also has a close range form accessible once the ranged form is mastered, I tempt her. It does? Soifan asks in shock. Yes, it does, I answer. What is it? Soifan demands immediately. It is still Jackum Rakenben, but works on the principle of compression still. You'll still have some long-range capability though, I say, then decide simply to release the blade and show her. Suzumabachi lets me use either form. I draw the blade and release Suzumabachi into Shikai without a word. Bankai, Jackum Rakenben, I say, and my power flares around me for a moment, concealed by Kidm, meant to keep us from Avalon's notice. I have taken on the close combat form now. I wear 2 gauntlets similar to Suzumabachi's Shikai, but the blades are long in this case, extending over my hands, rather than encasing my fingers. The 2 needle blades upon my gauntlets are about the length of Suzumabachi's fully sealed blade. Upon each arm are 2 oddly lightweight tower shields, similar to the shield plate of the long-range form of this Bankai, attached to both forearms in this case though. Upon my shoulders are mounted 2 immense blocks of metal, which of the front portion of them slide open to reveal several missiles, smaller versions of the missile used by the long-range form of this Bankai. However, the heads of the missiles are shaped like the heads of hornets. With a hiss, the first 2 missiles ready to fire. How does this work on the principle of compression? Soifan demands. Like my Tensas and Jetsu. It increases strength and speed, though it does not magnify your power beyond what Bankai does naturally. My Tensas and Jetsu constantly magnifies and compresses my power, so that I am constantly growing stronger the longer I am in Bankai. This makes it hard for me to leave Bankai, but it makes me able to continue fighting almost indefinitely, I explain. The missiles are useful as well. How? Soifan inquires, curious. Unlike the missile in the long-range form, these have 2 possible ways to explode. The first is pretty much the same way as the missile of the long-range form, but these are much shorter ranged. Maybe a kilometer of range in them, but not much more though, I explain. The explosion is smaller as well, only being able to take out a large building rather than a small city, I continue. Soifan nods in understanding, apparently willing to accept the trade-off of increased speed and strength, as well as close-range capability, for lesser destructive force. I have more shots though, and I can target the foe more easily, without worry of friendly fire, Soifan approves. True. The second form is truly nasty though, and great for facing multiple foes. They explode into clouds of shrapnel, and each piece of shrapnel is not only sharp, but also carries the poison that grants Suzumabachi its ability to kill in 2 hits, I explain. So hundreds of Monka placed all at once by each missile, and the shards could quite easily hit twice in the same place or simply rip the enemy apart. Soifan asks with a small smile on her face. I nod, and she begins to look over the second form of her Bankai with an approving eye, beginning to smile as she sees the possibilities. Precisely. And some assassinations are the loud flashy type, and that's what your long-range Bankai is for, I offer. I understand, Soifan replies. Okay then, let's move on to dealing with the other orders. Kenpachi, you and me will take out Mordred. However, we do that after the other orders are destroyed, I say, then am interrupted by a very unwelcome voice. Mind if I get in on this planning session? A man asks, appearing from behind his own concealment kitten. He carries a sword and a longbow, with the hilt of the sword and the slight rust around the edges of the sheath, showing he hasn't drawn his sword in many years. There are no marks of wear on the hilt, and it takes decades for rust to begin appearing on soul steel, and any care for the blade at all, or even releasing the blade, will stop rust. The longbow however is well used, the marks of wear clear on it. Ranger, I say, readying Jackham Rakenben for combat. Yeah, but not one loyal to Mordred, the ranger assures me. I'm Matthew, of the Order of the Defiant Dawn, he introduces himself. How did you know we were here? I demand. If it was a security breach, someone is going to pay dearly for their ineptitude. I do not suffer fools, either as allies or subordinates. If it was treachery, there will be blood. I guessed, Matthew says, and the feel of his Ryatsu indicates he is telling the truth. I heard about your intervention in the battle yesterday from a knight of the Order of the Eternal Flame, who's a friend of mine and survived that battle. He's a good man, fought as Ryargward when Avalon retreated, one of the last out. He said he dueled the leader of your 8th combat team, Matthew offers as identification. Hiroto? I inquire. Yeah, I remember that guy. Paladin, and a good duelist. Fought well against me, though he took heavy wounds, Hiroto answers. I saw him act as the Ryargward for his comrades, and he was third to last off the battlefield. Okay, your story checks out. Now elaborate on how you extrapolated that to guessing we'd be here, I demand. I was pretty sure you'd retaliate against Avalon, especially since it sides with your Spirit King. Taking out Mordred is something I approve of, and I'll help if you let me. I guess that if you plan to retaliate, you'd do so within a few days, to capitalize on the shock factor from the battle you intervened in. I also know that this perimeter of Avalon's territory, the eastern perimeter, is the perimeter that's hardest to get to from where you were, and so the one you're most likely to infiltrate through, for increased shock factor. So, I volunteered for Eastern Patrol, and hope to get lucky and stumble across your camp, Matthew explains. You did well then. How did you zero in on our location though? I ask, grudgingly impressed. And why did you look for us? I got very lucky when it came to zeroing in on your location. I have a friend among your Kidden Corps, and he taught me a few of your concealment Kidden and how to find someone using them. You used one of those, and I managed to trace it, though the trace was faint, and if I hadn't been nearby I would never have found it. I used that trace to get a general location, then worked by process of elimination. This terrain you're in only has a few places where you could set up a good place to hide a strong attack force, after all, he says. He is correct. This particular area is full of tall hills which offer concealment if there's enough space between them, but if not, then they offer only revelation of an attacker's strike force. Forests cover many of the hills, increasing concealment opportunities, but for a large force, the areas between the hills are the only place to conceal themselves. I see, I answer. My cloak helped as well. Created for camouflage, and with concealment spells woven into it, it allowed me to get past your sentries, who nearly discovered me at least a dozen times, Matthew groans. I've been a senior ranger for 400 years, and I had 150 years as a junior ranger before that, he states. Your sentries are very good at their job, and I had to pull out a lot of the stuff in my bag of tricks to get through. A 20-layer sentry screen with roving patrols between layers just isn't fair. Especially when the roving patrols are entirely random and use Kidden to move through the shadows, so they can appear without even a heartbeat's warning. I will have to reprimand them for not discovering you, I say. Though I'll probably add a word or two of praise to the reprimand. They deserve the praise in full, Matthew declares. Now, as for why I sought you out, it's simple. Mordred, once a year, throws the sons of the knights of 2 randomly selected orders into an arena and has them fight to the death. Last 10 standing become new pages or squires of his order. I lost 3 sons that way, and I'm going to lose 2 more if Mordred doesn't die within 3 days. I understand, I answer. So, you're bringing him down? Matthew asks. I nod as I seal Jackham Rakenben, deciding Matthew isn't an immediate threat. You may consider him to be a dead man, I say. We have 7 knight orders to destroy entirely, and the Knights of the Arctic Wolf need to ascend to reign over the other orders. Reports are that the Order of the Arctic Wolf should be able to take over on its own if we remove the Knights Ignis, the Knights Sanctus, the Knights of the Golden Star, the Knights of the Black Blade, the Knights of the Flawless Sun, and the Knights of the Eternal Dawn, I explain. Matthew is grinning at my statement. You're taking out all 7 of those orders? He asks eagerly, and I nod in confirmation. I think we're going to get along very well. I'm also planning to take any female knight trainees or female knights who you don't allow to go to war and add them to the Sirte Guard, I say, and he begins to smile widely. Excellent. I'll gladly help take that lot out, and the Order of the Arctic Wolf is a Trian order, Matthew says. So, 2 knight orders were created from it that didn't split off and become entirely separate, but instead retained some allegiance to their parent order. I ask, and receive a nod. Yeah. The Knights of the Winter Wolf and the Knights of the Ice Wolf. The Knights of the White Wolf and the Knights of the Blizzard Wolf were also founded from it and still have strong ties. Those 5 orders will take over if the 7 you mentioned go down in flames, Matthew assures me. I know the Supreme Grand Master of the Arctic Wolf, and he's a good man. All 5 orders are made up of men like those of your 11th Division, but they're good honest men. They'll ally with the Black Watch fairly quickly, or at least settle the old feuds if possible. You could actually probably get support if you need it from them, he muses. Not needed. If the Rangers stay out of our way, we can deal with the rest. We don't need the distraction the Rangers could be, though, I state. Can you get them out of our path? I'm Ranger Commander. The person who's in charge of them all. So yes, I can do that, Matthew says, and I begin to grin at this evidence of Mordred's idiocy. I already did it, in fact. You'll have a clear run at any knight order you decide to take out. Excellent. Now, we need to begin assigning the mop-up teams. Only Mordred's order gets the dignity of us actually attacking it and meeting its knights with steel in hand. The other 6 will be within range of Jackham Regenben, given the place I selected for Soifan and myself to shoot from, so their fortress strongholds die in fire from missile bombardment. Can you manage 3 shots, Soifan, or will I need to take 4 targets for myself? I ask. I can take 3 shots. I've been working on raising my Ryatsu levels, Soifan assures me. Good. I'll take out the Knight Sanctus, the Knights of the Eternal Dawn, and the Knights of the Flawless Sun. You get the other 3, Soifan, I command, getting out the map I was provided with by the Black Watch and indicating the targets. A good map, Matthew says, looking at it. Knights of the Round Table have their fortress a kilometer west of where it's marked, but other than that every one of your targets is marked correctly, he states. Also, the street plans are slightly off, but your indicated firing post is a good one. It'll be easy to get to and has clear lines of fire. Good. 2nd Division and 11th Division will provide the mop-up teams, Soifan declares. Sounds good, Zaraki grins. 11th and 8th dealing with the assault on Mordred. Yes. After 2nd has brought the walls down, of course, I state. We have infiltration going in ahead of us to set explosives and bring the walls down, along with getting rid of their men-at-arms, their pages, and their squires. Hopefully, some of the knights will die as well, I declare. Then the combat teams and 11th go in and capitalize on the shock factor. Akijim Tenjin Mim will be used to bring down the main keep, preferably with Mordred in it, but I'm not going to get my hopes up. Got it, Zaraki says. Assaulting a castle is no fun anyways, so I let 2nd bring the walls down around their ears before I start having fun, he says, and I silently thank him as I rise to my feet. Soifan, Zaraki, you assign the mop-up teams. I'll be getting 8th organized for the assault, I say, and head over to where the ranks of the 8th are marshalling. It doesn't take long for me to notice one more officer than I should have, and I spot a 2nd officer that shouldn't be present a moment later. Alexis, Claire, explain yourselves, I say exasperatedly. We felt like being in on this. Besides, you have more combat teams than combat-capable officers, Alexis answers. I see. Good thinking, I say to Alexis, confirming with a glance that I have more combat teams formed up than officers to command them, at least officers capable of fighting. I'm still 12 officers short, but I'll have to manage with what I have. So we can stay? Alexis asks. Yes. However, since I'm 12 officers short, even including you two, Hiroto, and Kurenai are all being assigned 3 extra teams apiece, I decide, offering them a challenge. You thought ahead, which is good. The kind of thinking you did is the kind senior officers need, I say, and Alexis grins. None of the division are currently wearing their helms, so I can get a clear gauge of their thoughts from their expressions. The Shinigami who might be assigned to either Alexis or Claire looked apprehensive when I first made my decision to test their command potential, but at my statement that becoming senior officers is in their future, they calmed down substantially. We will not fail you, Teichm, Alexis vows. I'll select my teams immediately. Very well, I say, seeing Alexis move off to begin selecting the 4 teams that she will command. I definitely think command is in her future with that kind of attitude. She is selecting her own troops and trusting her judgment rather than waiting for them to be assigned to her. Well, I would have picked good teams for her to lead, I would have made sure they would keep an eye on her. But with her taking initiative and Claire not far behind, I begin to grin slightly. I hear Alexis beginning to evaluate one team, thinking out loud as she considers the Shinigami. I'm hoping she'll be like a Kaku and never want division command, as keeping her would be good for the 8th. You were right when you said a good career was in her future, Nanao says. I like her spirit and she definitely has the independent thinking needed for senior command. She'll do well in the 8th if she keeps working like that. She will, I state. I've seen enough to know she'll be a good officer before long. Add a commendation to her file. Tachem, Nanao answers. I'm unusual for a captain, being far less distant from the lower ranked Shinigami than most. I'm held in awe by my division, but I make sure I'm approachable. Most captains have few friends outside their lieutenants, possibly their third seats, and other captains. I'm close friends with my lieutenant and know most of my division by name. I'm also able to call at least some of the data about one of my division members to mind in a heartbeat, thanks to extensive review of the files about my division members. Due to this, I'm rarely wanting for a friend to drink with or a person to talk to about some social matter. Prepare the division for battle, I order Nanao, then turn to join Soifan, who is heading towards Avalon to set up in our firing post. Tachem, Nanao, confirms my order. I am striding beside Soifan a moment later, then as I begin to overtake her, my strides far longer, simply lift the smaller captain and seat her on my left shoulder. Enjoy the ride, I tell Soifan, who growls at me. It'll get us there faster, since we can't use Shunpo for fear of detection, I state. Thank you, Soifan says grudgingly. As the ride continues, she settles down, getting used to a smooth ride without jolts like she would get if she were riding with Saraki or Sajin. When we enter Avalon proper, I have reason to thank Urahara. He made an item that created a kidm illusion over me. As I pass into the Rukongai of Avalon, the device activates. A few minutes later, I catch sight of my reflection in a pool. Soifan no longer appears, concealed by the illusion. Instead, I appear to be an Avalon knight in the colors of the Order of the Arctic Wolf, wearing the cloak of a paladin. I draw my Naginata, and it appears to be an immense glaive instead. My armor is adorned with a wolf pelt slung over one shoulder, and my helm is styled in the shape of a wolf's head, while more wolf symbols adorn my armor, as do symbols related to ice and winter. The day, Sir Knight, one of the commoners of the Rukongai greets me as I pass, entering a populated area. The day, I reply, keeping to the standard manners of Avalon. It is slightly past noon, by but a few minutes, and I intend to be in position by 4 hours past noon, preferably far sooner. My white and blue armor catches the light, and with a flare of displeasure, I note that I bear the symbols of a Knight Grandmaster and a Senior Paladin, and I also notice the name emblazoned on my armor in ornate letters. Alexander, which is fitting but unwelcome. I didn't want to be looking like a knight so senior all other knights would probably know of him. Another knight out here? I hear a man ask as he emerges from a small house, which is built sturdily of stone with a well-made thatch roof set over wood beams. He is clad in emerald and black armor, obviously a knight of the Glorious Star. Knights rarely come out here, he says, not having noticed me yet, addressing the man who spoke to me. Where is he? The man points to me, and I reluctantly turn to face the other knight. Who are you, sir? The man demands. He bears the insignia of a senior and a kidm specialist, wearing his sword proudly at his side, a glaive slung across his back. Knight Grandmaster Alexander, of the Order of the Arctic Wolf, I state, ready to fight if need be. Who are you? Sir Tristan of the Order of the Glorious Star, Lord, he answers, bowing his head. Might I ask of thee a boon, my lord? He asks, and I decide to comply, to fit the nature of the order I am posing as a member of. Indeed, Sir Tristan. Name it, and should it be of a minor nature, such that might be attended to without excessive use of time, I shall aid. I am required by the Supreme Grand Master of my order, and must make haste yet to arrive. I was sent to assess the eastern perimeter as an area for wilderness training drills, and must make my report within the next hours, I say, creating a plausible story on the fly. Understood. I merely wish to travel alongside you for a time, to carry petition to another order for membership. The Knights of the Glorious Star have proven ill-suited to my temperament, and perhaps the Arctic Wolf will suit me better as an order to serve, my lord, he says, and I nod, understanding his thoughts. Keep up then, I order, and begin to stride forward. When we reach an unpopulated area, I am prepared for treachery. Your illusion is excellent, my lord, Tristan says as soon as we are out of hearing range of others. You are here to end Mordred's rule, correct? He asks, and I nod slightly. I will gladly assist. I have no love for him, and any foe of his is friend of mine. Good. You can help our cover. How did you see through the illusion? I ask, already preparing a reprimand for incompetence. I barely did so. I was trying, and your cover story is excellent. With me along to confirm your story and confirm who you are, as I easily can do, you will pass unquestioned by any other. And I wasn't lying about seeking a change of order. Perhaps your forces would be a better match for me than those of Avalon. I wish to see your temperament so I might decide. Are you an officer of your forces? Tristan asks. Captain of the 8th Division. I lead one of our 13 divisions. The person with me is captain of the 2nd, I answer. I am in luck this day, then, Tristan exults. To meet 2 supreme grandmasters so I might take the temperament of them. It is fine fortune indeed that I am granted. We're taking out a few corrupt orders, like the Knight Sanctus, on the way to Mordred's stronghold, I say. I like you already, Tristan replies a moment later, after presumably consulting his mental records on the Knight orders. To cleanse Avalon is a worthy goal indeed. Knight Grandmasters aren't well known outside their orders by the way, so unless you meet a Knight of the Arctic Wolf, you'll pass without question. How do you plan to destroy the other orders? Myself and Soifan have long-range, highly destructive Bankai, I explain. Excellent. So their strongholds will fall. Today, all knights are usually gathered to their strongholds, as it is the first day of the week. They are assigned patrols and other duties, then scatter. You will get all but a handful of your enemies with your strikes, Tristan tells me. Good. I have multiples Zanpakuto bound to me due to certain circumstances, I explain. You have studied the Sirte Guard, correct? I ask hopefully. Yes. I have made every attempt to learn of your ways and culture, as I long ago found that no knight order suited me as well as I would like, he answers. Do you have Bankai? I query. I do. Why do you ask? He replies. Bankai is a requirement for officers in the 8th Division, which is one of the frontline's combat divisions. To have Bankai is to be selected for promotion into the ranks of officers. Each officer leads a combat team of 50 Shinigami, I explain. It would be my honor to serve as an officer within your ranks, Tristan states without hesitation. I will lead to the best of my abilities and serve until my death in battle. You have my word as a knight, which will hold until released by you or your successor, he declares. Be not so quick to swear an oath of such magnitude. I accept it, but I would have preferred that you gained more knowledge of me before swearing loyalty, I chide him slightly. And such consideration is why I hold you worthy of serving, Tristan responds. Then serve well, and I shall hold you blameless for swearing your life into my service so swiftly. I shall never ask that you retire if you wish it not, for I would not request that a warrior who can still serve leave the field, I state, and he bows slightly. My thanks, my lord, he answers. You are where you'll be fighting alongside women, correct? In fact, the majority of the 8th is female, I say, and he nods. I am willing to accept women as warriors. Your culture has many examples of it, I believe. He asks. Indeed. You'll receive new armor once we return to the Sirte. For now, welcome to the Sirte Guard, 10th seat Tristan, I decide. There are 20 positions for seated officers. 2nd seat is lieutenant, 1st seat is captain. My bodyguard, who will rejoin me once I begin the attack against Mordred, are all given the rank of 3rd seat to facilitate command. The captains are discussing expanding the number of seated ranks to 30 seats, possibly more, but even if we do, I'll guarantee you 10th seat still, I resolve. I will do honor to my rank, my lord, Tristan vows. I thank you for your trust, and will not fail in the charge you give me. Good. Seeing as all of my division members are required to have Shikai, you will essentially be commanding 50 knights, I explain. So, I am for all intents and purposes, am becoming a mid-ranking knight master. Tristan asks, and I nod as I consider the equivalence. Senior knight master if the number of seated ranks expands, I say, and he stumbles for a moment in shock. Then his mind catches up with his body, and he swiftly moves to catch up, moving slightly in front of me to a place where he can easily put himself in the way of any attacks meant for me, clearly meaning to protect his new leader himself, seeing as my bodyguard isn't here. I will not fail in my charge, Tristan swears a few moments later, wary of everything surrounding us. I trust that you shall not. Now, I believe we're approaching a checkpoint, so kindly be ready to verify our passage, I command. Halt. I hear the command a moment later. 2 knights in the livery of the Defiant Dawn, gold, violet and crimson, with reddish-orange cloaks, bar our way at the checkpoint, swords in hand. Names. They are junior knights, who decided not to follow one of the specialities, but instead wield their Zanpakuto as their sole weapon. Sir Tristan of the Glorious Star, Tristan declares. Seeking admittance into the Order of the Arctic Wolf, and to that end accompanying Knight Grandmaster Alexander of the Order of the Arctic Wolf, who was scouting for a combat training area upon the eastern perimeter, he explains. I hear a buzzing in my ear a moment later, the sign of a communication kitten being targeted at me. Matthew got in contact with all the knights of the Arctic Wolf through Kidden, Urahara says. Your false identity has been given to them, and they'll act as if you were truly one of their own, he informs me, and I send a pulse of Riatsu along the thread that connects Urahara to me via the kitten that was cast to allow him to speak to me in acknowledgement. We have one of that order here. Perhaps you'll wait for us to have him confirm his identity. One of the knights asks. Of course, I say, cutting off Tristan before he can speak. Now run along and fetch him, before I have you hauled before your Supreme Grand Master for barring my way to speak with the Pack Lord, I growl. The Arctic Wolf and all its successor orders call their Supreme Grand Masters by the title of Pack Lord, which is a useful detail I picked up from our data files. Yes, sir, one of the junior knights says sarcastically. Now, surrender. The bluff is over, he begins, before a knight in the colors of the Arctic Wolf leaves the barracks building that was created to allow this to act as both a checkpoint and a stronghold in case of invasion. There is no reason a Grandmaster would be all the way out here, after all, he begins, then the Arctic Wolf Knight intervenes. Grandmaster Alexander? He asks as he strides over to me. I nod, and he immediately rounds on the other two knights. Peace. They were merely doing their duty, I say, seeing the two junior knights of the Defiant Dawn, who aren't wearing their helms, pale drastically at the confirmation from a knight of the Arctic Wolf. They were standing in the way of your mission, Fanglord, and seeing as you are the one who will likely be the next Packlord when Packlord Gaius passes on, they may as well be obstructing one of Mordred's champions, the knight answers. The two junior knights pale further, and one collapses to his knees. Mercy, my lord, we beg your mercy, the collapsed knight says, prostrating himself, clearly desperate to survive. I will forget this incident. Bar not my way again, and send word forward to other checkpoints that I will be passing through on the way to my order's stronghold, I say. They have courage, at least, to try and bar the way of someone immensely stronger than them. Of course, Grandmaster Alexander, the knight still standing, speaks immediately. I'll attend to clearing your passage myself. There are 16 more knights of our order here, Fanglord, the Arctic Wolf Knight says. Shall I have them escort you? I consider, and not a moment later, deciding such is due to my assumed dignity. A few minutes later, I am on the move again, 16 knights surround me in a square formation, a squire trotting along at my side, struggling to match my pace. The Packlord says if you pull this off, you can consider your rank permanent, one of the knights says. Why? I inquire, slowing slightly for the squire. You'll have done a deed worthy of knighthood, and your rank would be correct, considering your power. Besides, having a Japanese knight in our ranks will open us up to ideas from outside. Since you're taking our females off our hands and saving us from the constant mayhem they create out of boredom, you'll definitely earn the rank of Fanglord. The boy trying to keep up with you is the Packlord's youngest son and will be your squire. What are your actual colors, by the way? He queries. Red, black, and emerald, I say. It was originally only red and black, the color of my Riatsu, but then I took to the color green after I temporarily led the 5th. The captain's quarters they were painted green, and I took nicely to the color. I also include some hints of pink in there, for the reason that the last captain of the 8th, who led for hundreds of years, wore a pink haori. Good reasons to include emerald and pink, those, the knight says. Pays honor to predecessors. Indeed. I take it the kid will be wearing my colors? I ask, and he nods. I'll need to get him the armor my division wears then, unless some rule of yours prohibits that. All my division members wear full armor at all times, after all, I say. He can wear plate armor when on duty, but not off duty, the knight informs me. He's off duty when not patrolling or fighting, under the laws. I see. I take it he'll be wearing my heraldry and colors. I ask, and receive a nod. I'll need to go to the trouble of creating a personal crest then, unless I want to use the crest of the noble family I belong to, the Yamamoto. I'll also need to find someone who can keep him out of trouble when I'm doing my job, which involves large-scale fights with powerful foes, delicate missions, and paperwork. He'll stay out of your way or answer for it to his father. He knows a good bit about your kinds of duties, I'm assured. Good, I sigh. His father would regard it as a personal favor if the kid is kept safely out of the way for a decade or two. His oldest son is a bad apple, while his other sons are good, strong men. He'd like to keep the kid somewhere away from his eldest brother until he can protect himself or is at least too old to be easy prey, the knight requests. Consider it done. Once he's captain grade, I'll consider him ready to return to you, I decide. That means the second release, high-level magic skill, and everything else, right? I'm asked, and I nod in confirmation. Exactly what is asked for then. That'll keep the boy busy for at least 20 years, hopefully a bit more. I looked after the boy when he was newly born, and keeping him safely at your side for half a century is exactly the kind of thing I consider a good idea. Half a century won't be too hard to manage. If he doesn't have Shikai yet, or any extensive training beyond page training, I could probably keep him busy for at least that long if I felt like it, especially if I arranged for him to receive hand-to-hand training as a requirement before I considered him ready to go home, I offer. Half a century it is then. Visits home on occasion included perhaps, the knight offers as a possibility. Once or twice a year, built into the schedule and delaying his progress a bit. Yes, using tricks like that and insisting on refinement of basics before we move on to advanced techniques, I'll be able to make his training last, I state. Good idea. Now, I suggest we continue at speed, the knight says. Now that your identity is established, high-speed movement is acceptable, he offers. I nod, grab the boy who is practically running to keep up now, seat him on the shoulder Soifan isn't on, and prepare for Shunpo. Both of them grasp onto my armor as power begins to flare around me, the illusion not concealing the boy, I notice. Let's get moving then, I say, and flicker forward. My escort has to use 3 steps to my 1 using their variant of Shunpo. Can you slow down? Tristan asks when we're about halfway to our destination, a mere hour past noon, and just a few minutes away from the attack position I chose to strike from. I'm putting minimum power into my Shunpo, I tell him, and he groans. When we arrive at our destination, an immense stone towering a bit over 4 kilometers high, barely 50 meters wide at the top, and 4 times that at the bottom, which old wooden steps wind around, once used as a watch post, now abandoned, I pause. The stairs won't hold you, Soifan says. I doubt they'll hold the brat riding on your shoulder, for that matter. They won't, I say, and set the boy on the ground. Hang on to my armor, I command, then sink my fingers into the stone pillar. Don't you dare, Yamamoto, Soifan says, but it's too late. I've already begun to climb the pillar, my strength easily allowing me to craft the holds I need. I swarm up the nearly sheer slope of the pillar, reaching the top less than half an hour after I begun, closer to a quarter of an hour actually. About a third of an hour to climb the pillar, when I finish the calculation by the position of the sun. Get down, I tell Soifan, who leaps down to the ground with ease and draws her sword. Benkai, Jakim Rakenben, we chorus, the 2 immense missiles coming into sudden existence. I find my 3 targets and carefully line up my first shot as Soifan does the same. Let's get this done right the first time, I say, and fire my first shot, a new missile appearing on the launcher a moment later with a flare of power, even as Soifan fires her first shot. I don't wait for the explosion, but begin lining up my second shot immediately. When the explosion comes, consuming the castle of the Knight Sanctus, my second shot is aimed and about to be on its way. Of course, Soifan answers as I fire my second shot. I don't want to shoot more than 3 times. Naturally, I say, lining up my third shot, aiming for the Knights of the Eternal Dawn. My third shot leaves the launcher at the same time as Soifan's second shot, and I move to line up her third target, finding it, lining up my shot, and firing at the same time as she fires her third shot, the explosions consuming the last fortress mere moments later. Let's get down from here, Soifan says. I grab her and seat her on my shoulder again. Hold on, I say, and jump off the pillar of stone, using air walking to begin to slow myself down a few hundred meters from the ground. I still create a small crater when I land, but the shock is minimal. I wouldn't have bothered to slow down if it wasn't for Soifan, who isn't quite as durable as I am, and had to take part of the shock as well. We move at highest speed possible now, I order, wrapping my power around the others. What are you doing? Tristan asks, then I begin my Shunpo, my power wrapped around the others dragging them in my wake at higher speeds than they could ever manage themselves. I am the 3rd fastest in the Sirite, only Soifan and Yorichi being faster than I am. I am faster than Byakuya on account of having power to burn on overcharged Shunpo, and I'm faster than Yamajiji on account of his age holding him back a bit. I'm getting us where we need to go, I growl. The other teams were sent into position through Transport Kid earlier. I take it we need to move faster. One knight asks, and they begin to actively use their own Shunpo, making it easier for me to drag them along, as I increase my speed even further, getting to a point where they would need 90 steps to my 1 to match me, if I wasn't dragging them in my wake. We're here, I say when we arrive 20 minutes later, a short distance from Mordred's fortress. Shinigami teams are appearing from under Concealment Kid, and the walls are already tumbling down, the 2nd Division sabotage teams having also sabotaged a main keep as well to allow me to avoid using Tenkin's Bankai. I draw Kaiten Kayakatsu without a word. Anaka's Midari, Kasha Naki, Tent Midari, Tenmawarao, Kaiten Kayakatsu, I say, releasing the Shikai. Soifan slides down from my shoulder and readies for combat. Mind giving us a minute? One knight asks, groaning. They were disoriented by the rapid movement, far faster than they're used to. From the ruins of the keep emerge several knights, all in armor painted entirely black. Mordred, Tristan says as their master, wearing a black cloak, emerges behind them. and all 16 of his champions. There are no other living knights within the now ruined castle, and I advance, Zaraki emerging from the shadows and falling in beside me, even as my bodyguard moves forward to engage Mordred's champions. I cease the illusion upon my armor and ready my blades, reducing my size, so I am equal to Zaraki in height with a flicker of divine power. That means I'm about Mordred's height, and I look at the Supreme Grand Master of Avalon, Sir Mordred the Black, with disdain. His armor is covered in serrated spikes and barbs at various areas, and the cloak has skulls woven into its edges. I snarl and ready my swords even as Mordred draws his, my bodyguard dueling his champions. Final release. Betray, Clarent Mortis, Mordred growls. Mordred, I snarl, and charge, Zaraki joining me. Mordred's blade, now a broadsword, meets Zaraki's blade in a shower of sparks, then my armored boot snaps out and catches Mordred in the gut, sending him flying back. My mass doesn't lower unless I wanted to, after all, and in this case, I wanted every bit of power and weight I could bring to bear to deal with the traitor knight. I will kill you, Mordred snarls. Better have tried, I reply, voice thick with hate, even as I let the Kenpachi curse out to play, my vision focusing on Mordred, even as I feel the curse consuming my reason, demanding that I kill Mordred. Irene. Black, I say, and toss away my Haori, smashing into Mordred with a thunderous roar of hate, bringing the long blade smashing into his, even as Kenpachi roars forward, smashing aside Mordred's blade, so my long blade can be brought down upon his left arm, his shield arm. He fails to block, not having his shield, and my sword, which normally would have glanced off his kid reinforced armor, slices through his plate with ease and leaves his arm dangling by a thread. Die. Mordred roars and wielding Clarent Mortis one-handed, brings it level. The blade flashes black and suddenly illusionary copies of Mordred appear all around us. Clarent is the coward's blade and no coward wants his foe to know where he strikes from. I close my eyes, relying on my training with Suzumushi to use my senses that do not rely on Side or Riatsu sensing. Suddenly, my instincts flare and I spin around, my short sword catching Mordred across the chest and slicing into his ribs with a spray of blood. The illusions vanish swiftly. No thanks, I reply to Mordred, then block a thrust from Clarent, batting the sword aside. Mordred hasn't fought for hundreds of years and he's gotten rusty. Obvious, I say, then a sudden butterfly mark appears around Mordred. Soifan's Shikai caught him in the back and that Shikai is actually very good at piercing armor. Without drama, Sir Mordred, betrayer of King Arthur, wielder of Clarent, the coward's blade, is dead, dissolved into dust, stabbed in the back. A fitting end, I decide, and my heel slams into the now empty helm, crumpling it. Mordred is dead. One of the champions calls when he sees his lord has fallen, then I take his head off with Kaiten Kayakatsu. I charge into the remaining enemy knights and begin the process of killing them, the enemy swiftly being overwhelmed. The 2nd and 11th Division are occupied with men-at-arms, pages, and squires surviving from Mordred's order, slaying them in swift vicious battles. The job is done, I say once the last man-at-arms, the last servant of Mordred, is dead. I call myself back from the curse, the rage leaving me as my eyes begin to clear of the red haze, sealing Kaiten Kayakatsu and allowing my divine power to lapse, returning to my full size. Outside, Knights of the Arctic Wolf are escorting their Supreme Grand Master within the fallen walls of the castle. The tall man, with thick red hair and a beard, wolf pelts adorning his armor. His upper canine teeth are longer than they should be, protruding over his lip and clearly sharp. Obviously the product of Kidm. His hair is untamed, a wild mane cascading down his back. He has several scars, but his face isn't full of them. I remove my helm and nod in approval. A man with too many scars is a man who doesn't know how to dodge, in my opinion. I chose well for our new fanglord, he growls, his voice a rumbling snarl. Your warrior born, Alexander, he smiles. The name means defender or protector of mankind, Urahara informs me. I thought you would find it fitting. I do, I say. I'll use the name when dealing with those Shinigami organizations that aren't Japanese. It is suitable, considering our job is to protect humanity from horrors beyond the grave, I state, and get an approving grin from Packlord Gaius. I definitely like you, Alexander, he rumbles. I was born to shed blood in the name of a good cause. Give me a worthy cause, such as the duty of a Shinigami, and a strong blade, and I will slay whoever dares threaten with abandon, I inform him, and he laughs loudly. I think we will be very good friends. You are now the teacher of my youngest son. I trust you to teach him your laws and ways of fighting. I will send tutors to teach him what more he needs to know of our ways, but I would prefer that he be more a product of your guard than of our ways, so I might have an advisor on dealing with you, Shinigami, he growls. I would have taught him our ways primarily regardless. Expect him back in half a century or so, I reply. Visits to home included, though? Gaius asks. I nod and he grins again. Good, the whelp will learn your ways properly, in the fullness of time. I dislike the youth of these days, always rushing around as if everything must be done 5 minutes ago. The wolf is patient as he stalks his prey and runs it to ground, then strikes with swift savagery to get the killing strike. Patience, I advocate. And patience, you Shinigami have. I may even send you a few hundred knights to educate properly. As for our female trainees, have them and welcome. I'll hand them over immediately, and you can do whatever you want with them, Fanglord Alexander Yamamoto, he declares. I thank you and will make use of them as good warriors to fill the ranks of the Sirte Guard. I accept your offering of peace in the form of new warriors for our divisions, and offer to you a permanent posting of 200 Shinigami of the 1st Division, I say. Your elites. They could teach my knights patience and aid me greatly in the training of pages and squires. I find your offer good, Captain of the Sirte Guard, and accept, Gaius decides. I have full authority to make such an offer, and Yamajiji will find the trade of 200 of his veterans a small thing, compared to the 8 of Avalon's nearly 300,000 remaining knights. They will arrive shortly after I return to the Sirte, I swear. Now, on peace with the Black Watch. I will see to it, Gaius says. Far off, I sense the combat teams of the 8, as well as detachments of the 2nd and 11th, begin striking at other groups of knights who were beyond redemption, engaging Mordred's loyalists. Getting rid of the remaining taint. Culling the sick from the pack, I say, and he nods in understanding. Testing new leaders of their own packs in battle. Good. The only place you can get the measure of a warrior is in a fight, Gaius attests, and I nod at this bit of wisdom. We begin to clarify details of our alliance and my position with the Order of the Arctic Wolf, which may be honorary but still holds power, as the fights wind down. A couple of hours later, all the warriors of the Sirte Guard sent here are gathered and ready for inspection. How did Alexis and Claire do? I asked Kurenai covertly. Alexis did very well. She's the born leader between those two, and Claire follows her example, even though Claire has about 50 years on Alexis. I think Alexis was born with fire in her heart and a will of steel. She fights well and leads well, though she is inclined to test the odds. Claire is much more by the book, a slower, more methodical leader. Alexis knows tactics and strategy, and she uses them well, but she's prone to make things up on the fly if needed, Kurenai reports. I smile at this confirmation of my thoughts. Excellent. Command both for bravery and leadership, and tell Alexis that our next party is 9 days from now, I say, deciding that Alexis will probably become a very common face at my parties from now on. I like how the future is shaping up. I like it very much indeed. 8th Division, assemble. I bark as we return to the Sirte, a week after we left it, 4 alliances forged. The Black Watch and Avalon currently have an uneasy peace, but there will not be true battle between them. Skirmishes are about all that can be expected, and I'll be content with that. The parade ground of the 8th was created to allow over 500,000 Shinigami to assemble in case a true army was formed and prepared to be unleashed, through calling on allies and calling upon the entire Sirte Guard, which was the Gate 13 at the time of this parade ground's creation. All the divisions have a parade ground of similar size. The new recruits, all of those lacking Bankai clad in simple white and black armor, their destination undecided, form up behind my own veteran warriors. 25,000 new recruits born to cultures similar to the culture of the Sirte are clad in red and black armor, with emerald and pink trim adorning it. One of the 2 shoulder guards of the armor of each accepted member of my division is painted in white and blue, though, as a symbol showing that I am an honorary Knight Grand Master of Avalon, the colors of the Order of the Arctic Wolf. Wolf pelts are much in evidence, as are necklaces of wolf fangs. Several Zanpakuto now bear tassels of wolf fur upon their hilts. The division awaits your orders, Nanao says when the entire division is ready. Excellent. Now, we have guests today, I say, moving up onto the platform built to allow the entire force to see me. I am swiftly joined by Kamraku, Byakuya-chan, Sajin, Hitsugaya-senpai, and Shurm-chan. I believe all of you are aware that this division accepts only the best applicants. I ask and receive nods from every one of the new recruits. Now, we only take those with Shikai. There are roughly 20,000 of you lacking Shikai. As 5 divisions have expressed interest in you, you will be split evenly between them. You may choose, but you are required to express your preference by tomorrow. If you do not, your choice will be made for you, I say, and then continue without pausing. Now, we need 21,000 or so recruits from the ranks of the rest of you, I say. So, we're to be narrowed down into a smaller pool of new recruits? One asks. Correct. For those who do well, there will be exceptions made to allow them entrance, even though we are trying to contain our numbers. Now, any who have had Shikai for less than 10 years, those who cannot manage mid-level Kid, and those who are incompetent in hand-to-hand to leave. I know all warriors are trained in Kid, more your organization's version of our magic, and in hand-to-hand as students. If you are incapable of the basic arts or have only minimal familiarity with your shikai, leave for one of the other 5 divisions here or apply to one of the other 4 possible divisions. The 4th is made up of healers. The 3rd is a line combat division. The 9th currently has no captain but is still active in line combat. The 12th is research and technological development. They largely avoid combat. If you would prefer to avoid pitched battle, apply to the 4th or 12th, I say, and those without shikai and those who fall into one of the categories I mentioned leave swiftly, heading towards where 1st and 12th division clerks have set up things to swiftly process the transfers from my authority to other authorities. Ichigo, Byakuya says. Orders from the Saudachmar to increase your division to 60,000. He told me to tell you. 10,000 more than expected then. I'll be able to find enough from this lot, most likely, I say, surveying the remaining recruits. About 80,000 remain. I am receiving replacements from other divisions for my losses in the original battle where I went to the aid of the Black Watch and they are already beginning their training. Some are veterans from the 1st, women who decided that they wanted to be closer to the action. Others are from the 2nd, yet more females who chose to step out of the shadows. However, without exception, they are female. I have males in my personal guard and maybe 60 other males in the division, but that's all. I need to find 30,000 among these 80,000 who will be worthy of a place in the 8th. Any other thinning of our ranks before training begins. Alexa steps forward from among the trainees to inquire. Yes, I decide after a moment of thought. Any without Ryatsu levels exceeding the 4th rank while in Shikai on the standard scale is to leave, I say. The scale consists of 10 ranks, with 10 being someone who has grown strong enough and mastered his Shikai enough that his Shikai may as well be a lesser warrior's Bankai. Essentially, an experienced captain class fighter. The 4th rank is slightly above average, as the scale works on an exponential format. The scale may also be applied when measuring Bankai strength, strength with fully sealed blades, and so on and so forth. The numbers after this are unwelcome, 70,000 remaining, and they must be pared down still further. Any who do not use their Zanpakuto as their primary weapon are to leave as well, I say. Kidm specialists are excluded however, I declare. A mere 60,000 wait in ranks after that order. Training begins now for the rest of you, I order. Tachm, your commands. Nanao asks. Division fall out and fall in at the training fields. Let's get these new recruits into shape, I say, then turn to the other new recruits. As for our 25,000 new trainees here, let's get them started as well. But first, any questions? I ask. I have one of the Japanese recruits says. Were our deaths natural? Natural? No, I say, refusing to lie to a future warrior of mine. Were our deaths necessary? She asks next, looking me directly in the eye without fear. Short, tanned, and clearly strong. She radiates her strength proudly, and it is very near what an officer's should be when their blade is fully sealed. Yes, Ito Asami, I say, remembering her file. She came from a world where magic was not unknown, though not uncommon, and was one of the first new recruits acquired. She is a practical woman who lived in a world where war was constant. She lost all her brothers, her father, and her betrothed to war, and took up the blade herself later. I am content then, she says, clearly acting as spokeswoman for the group of girls. Your deaths are necessary because the Serite Guard needs soldiers to aid it in attending to its duty to protect and guide the souls of the deceased. We are at war, and you were called to defend what must be defended, I explained to the recruits. I am no stranger to conscription, Asami says. I can do good serving here. That's what matters, she declares. Excellent. Now get to the training fields, recruit, I bark out. She salutes and begins to lead the group she is among to the training grounds nearby. I follow, intending to give their first lesson personally. Then, I'll leave it to the trainers of the division. Why haven't we started yet? Alexis asks as a few minutes after the recruits arrive, the trainers arrayed in ranks before the crowd of trainees. I answer by prowling forth from the ranks of trainers, intending to address them myself. Among the living, there are 7 virtues of the code known as Bushido. We are warriors and respect the old ways and the old code. We face our enemy with steel in hand and pride in our hearts. We may disregard honor for practicality in some cases, but we are still loyal to the tenets of the code of samurai. However, we have 7 tenets ourselves. I begin my lesson. What are they? Alexis queries, listening intently. First and foremost is duty. If a soul is threatened, even though they may be your most dire foe, you are to lay your life down in their defense if it comes to it. If the balance of life and death is threatened, if there are too many of the living, and you are told to reduce the ranks of the living, you shall do it. Then you shall send those you slew on to their rest. We are the keepers of the balance, I state, and the trainers nod fiercely. Alexis's eyes, and the eyes of many other of the new recruits, burn with a passionate fire, understanding this code. Second is honor. If your honor is insulted and duty does not interfere, it must be defended. Insult cannot be suffered by a warrior. It is an insult to them. It is an insult to their trainers and their comrades. An insult to you is an insult to me. Likewise, if you give your word, you must keep it. No matter the cost, so long as duty is done first, your sworn word is paramount, I rumble. There are eager nods from most of the trainees who took the first tenet and engraved it upon their soul. We understand, Alexa says, wild passion burning in her voice. She is like me. She desires a cause, and I give her one. Her blood rises to answer the challenge that my words are, burning hot and strong. Good. Third is loyalty. Without loyalty to your oaths, to your duty, you are nothing. Every one of you who joins the 8th will be expected to swear personally to me that you will serve and obey me and the officers I appoint. You will be held to those oaths. You will be expected to follow me into battle without question and trust me in time of war. Fourth is pride. The warrior's pride is connected to their honor. If you cannot hold your head high, if you cannot hold yourself with the assurance of a warrior and pride of your calling, your strength will fail you. Pride is our shield against fear. Fear dulls our blades, saps our wills, I continue. Fifth is courage. Courage is not the lack of fear, but the ability to face it. Pride, honor, and courage are connected intricately, even as duty and loyalty are. Naturally, Alexis replies, her voice indicating that every tenet is burning itself into her soul. Hers is a will of burning fire and was stifled by the Black Watch, never allowing it to burn as it should have. She existed to be challenged, to be given a duty and a code that she could give her life for if need be. Now I give it to her, and that fire gains strength, causing her to become eager and ready to go to war. Sixth is wisdom. To act without thinking is not the way of a warrior. Knowledge alone is not wisdom, but it is a part of it. Wisdom is the way of using everything you have at hand to turn against the foe. To know the land, to know you warriors, to know yourself. To be able to combine passionate strength with impassioned judgment. To turn the strength of the enemy against them, or to turn the strength of the land to your favor. There are many types of wisdom. Trust your instincts. Trust your learning. Trust your comrades. Trust your blade. Know that these things are with you, and that you are a warrior of the Sirte Guard. Think before you act, and act with wisdom. Instincts bred from training and experience are the wisdom of battle. To know when the enemy force will break if pressed is the wisdom of a leader. To know how to craft or plate so it is flawless and able to withstand the attacks of the foe is part of the wisdom of an experienced smith. Wisdom is knowledge tempered with experience and paired with instinct. Trust it, use it, rely upon it, I command, receiving nods from several of the recruits who have seen such things. Seventh, and last, is control. Control yourself and you control the battle. Maintain peace within in peace and unleash your fury in war. But always control your fury and take care that peace dulls not your blade. We understand, Alexa states, stepping forward from the ranks. Good. This is your first and last lesson as a group from me. Respect your trainers. Respect your enemy. Respect yourselves and your comrades. Look to them as you train together, I declare. Once your numbers have been narrowed down, after the first week, you will be formed into combat teams, and we will attempt to have enough warriors with Bankai to appoint an officer to each, in which we are aided by those of you already possessing Bankai. My bodyguard will add to the ranks of commanders if needed. Once formed into combat teams, your team will be the only unit that matters to you. You will eat together, train together, sleep together, drink together, become strong together. You will learn to know each other as well or better than you do yourselves. Good luck, warriors, I say, then leave. Well spoken, Tachem, Nanao says as I leave the field, heading towards my division. Behind me, the trainers begin their work. We need the new strength. Many took the code into their souls. They will serve well anywhere, and I think that after the first week, we'll have narrowed them down enough that we'll have all of our new recruits, and then we have the problem of shaping our new officers, I say. I can never allow the burden of leading the division to show to anyone but Nanao and my bodyguard, but now that we are alone, I allow a bit of my weariness to enter my voice. We have 75 officers outside my bodyguard, Nanao. Most of my bodyguard are concentrating on training my companions from the first otherworld I went to in the arts of the Shinigami at the highest speed possible, so they can join my guard. I am to have 60,000 Shinigami under my command soon, 1,200 combat teams. 1,200 officers, most of whom must be trained. Only Tristan has ever seen combat out of all my new recruits, at least as a Shinigami. They need to have the experience to match their strength, and they don't, I say almost desperately. We have 6 months before I am to deploy again to the otherworlds. Other captains are attending to diplomacy now, with those who have already declared they are allies. I can turn my full attention to this. But now, I need experienced officers to help me shoulder the burden of the work I'm about to have. And I don't have them, I tell her, weary beyond words. A captain, in public, must always be strong. I know, Taichm, Nanao says as I remove my helm and sit beside one of the pawns I created. We've entered my garden, which was once Kamraku's. Yamajiji rather enjoys bonsai and instilled the same appreciation for the art in his students and myself. Multiple training fields were converted to a bonsai garden, a system of ponds set up and connected by channels, forming small waterfalls of sorts. I have rearranged the ponds and terraced the training fields, rather than allowing them to remain level. Miniature trees are all around, carefully created and maintained, every style apparent. Other trees were carefully grown larger around the barrier of this, my personal retreat, shielding it from prying eyes. This retreat has access to it restricted, not by any order of mine, but by an understanding between me and my division. They know that I need my privacy, my place to go when I must rest from a day's work. But soon, I will have more work than I have ever done before. The new officers are untrained. They do not know how to do their duties. You will have to teach them, and that will increase your own burden of work. Correct, I say, Nanao sitting beside me. I have too much to do, and none who can aid me. Sajin would if you asked, Nanao suggests. No, he has his own work to do. He has many things to do, and he is as weary as I am. Nanao, I tell her. All the captains are tired. We've had more work recently than you can imagine. It's been 10 months since I first came to the Sirte. 9 months since I became captain of the 8th. I have more work than you know, Nanao. I need to rest, I state. But I can't. I have too much to do, and I'm about to have more to do. I take it much of what you do is too sensitive for any but a captain to attend to. Nanao asks, and I nod. It is. I have not rested in 9 months, but have instead maintained a constant pace of my labors, I say. And I did not rest in the second otherworld I went to either. I spent 5 years there, Nanao. 5 years without rest, constantly laboring, I explain. I need to rest. But I can't. I have to remain strong and in command. I have a squire to teach. I have a division to run. I have a noble house to attend to. I have districts of the Rukongai to build, officers to train, lessons to learn from my Zanpakuto men, training of my own to do, allies to speak with, who I must maintain my strength before, and I still have the job of all Shinigami, that of maintaining the balance, I sigh. I understand, Taichm, Nanao says. Just as I understand that I'm the only one you can speak to. Your parties are too public. The other captains are just as busy, but if they saw how much you've taken upon yourself, they'd start trying to make you rest. So would your bodyguard. And you can't rest. This war is demanding too much from you. You've taken half the burdens of organizing everything in this war's affairs on yourself. And you can't take less now. You're too firmly embedded in the processes that make this work. So, we need to start figuring out how to shift the burdens elsewhere before you collapse, so you can get the rest you need, Nanao firmly proclaims. Yes, we do, I say, drawing upon my weary mind for what is to be done. But what do we do? First, you begin allowing some of your burden to fall on my shoulders, a very unwelcome voice says from behind me. I turn and find that Byakuya and Jshurm-chan have sought me out. Both women look furious, and I begin to rise, to reassume the mask that I have had to wear for everyone. I am pressed down by Byakuya's hand, and she shakes her head. No. No mask. Not here, she says. This is your sanctum, and I will not tolerate you wearing that mask here. Very well, I answer. Now, my clan has forged a marriage contract with yours. I am your future wife, at least one of them, and given my status as a noble, I am most likely to be seen by the other noble clans as first among your wives, Byakuya says. Only Jshurm is more respected. I will take up the burdens of your noble duties. There are taxes to be collected for your house, some long overdue, she states, and I nod. Your great-grandfather has allowed the duties of the Yamamoto to be set aside as he oversees the Sirte Guard. I have not. The Kichiki will attend to the necessities of collecting your taxes. You have done the duties your clan owes to those upon your lands, but you have not been paid your due, she growls. Your clan is in my hands. I will see to it and do the duties to the best of my ability. You'll delegate as necessary, of course, I say. It is a luxury I can't afford. The Yamamoto, the taxes owed to us often being unpaid, keep few retainers, though our noble rank and the taxes we should be paid, would allow us luxuries beyond what I have before imagined. Byakuya nods, and I hope that soon I'll be able to get retainers who can attend to their proper duties, once my clan's treasury is full. Kamraku will see to the training of your officers or to the building of the Rukongai districts, Jshurm-chan states. Or he will answer to me. It is his duty to do at least one of those two things, and he has been neglecting enough work. He will do at least one, possibly both, or I will leave him in Unohana's care for the next month, she snarls uncharacteristically. I will also see to your squire's training, Byakuya says. He must learn the laws first, and if he complains, I will gladly inform him of the fact that he is insulting the betrothed of his teacher, who he should hold in respect, just as he does you, by their own customs. He has much to learn before he is ready to learn from you. I can keep him occupied for some time. I am expected to have him for roughly half a century, I tell her, and she nods sharply. I know a losing battle, and I am thankful that this is one. These two I am able to confide in and trust with the work I have been doing, though I was reluctant to do so. They had their own work, but since they are insisting on aiding in my work, I will not stand in their way. My division has been withdrawn from the lines, as the Hollow Wars have quieted, thanks to Aizen's control over Hueco Mundo. There are many who do not obey him, but his rancor are keeping them in check, Chishurm says. We will take up the duty of Shinigami and relieve your division of the work. That will provide you with time to train. I will also attend to the matters of diplomacy with those you brought to our side. I can command their attention for the same reason Byakuya can command the respect of your squire, Ichigo, Chishurm says. Very well, I say, giving in. However, there is the matter of the intelligence reports I have been going over, as well as certain other matters I've been dealing with. I have taken on much of the paperwork necessary to organize this war, and it is tiring. The intelligence reports will come to me, a new voice declares. I register Yamajiji's presence now, and rise as he enters my sanctum. You have taken on far too much work. Now it is time to begin easing your burden. I was waiting for someone to realize how much you were doing, Ichigo, he states. I myself did not realize how much until only a month ago. You have far too much work, and have been shorting yourself on rest to do it. It is a wonder you did not collapse before now, he states, moving forward and meeting my eyes. I will have the paperwork you are doing attended to by members of the 1st Division I trust. Your mind was mortal mere months ago, and you have been growing swiftly in power and having to learn to handle it. Your body is strong still. Your mind requires rest. So, to that effect, I am ordering you to take the next month off and attend only to the parties you host and your training. The orders I will write out for you will specifically require you to attend to your own martial studies in light of the lack of time you have had for them. I have chosen an otherworld for you to go to rest, Yamajiji informs me. Duty calls then? I ask. No. This world is a place where hollows do not go. It is a world where you will have to be careful though. The majority of the inhabitants are female. They are also, as the current Japanese culture puts it, a mix between cat and female, he says, and I look at him in shock. Please repeat that, Yamajiji. Did you just say this world is filled with cat girls? I ask incredulously. I did, he confirms. The birth rate is 100 females to 1 male. It was discovered by Kumraku via accident, and he goes there on leisure trips on occasion. It has a time dilation ratio of 1 month to each day. You will be assigned there on patrol, not that there is any need for patrol. It is a world that has not seen war for 3,000 years. All inhabitants are spiritually sensitive, and I long ago came to an understanding with them. Shinigami of high rank who are burning themselves out are sent there to rest. They are powerful users of elemental type magic and long-lived. Now, you leave in 4 days, after your next party. You will host your usual social occasions twice weekly, and I will call you back via Kiden before each occasion, I am ordered. Also, you might want to know one thing, Yamajiji says, turning to walk away. Yuruchi's manner of teasing you as she did in an attempt to get past your sense of shame would be considered fairly mild there. Also, your power would be a prized addition to one of their bloodlines. Be on your guard, he warns me. I groan and begin to curse my new assignment. This is not going to be fun at all. Excellent, I growl as the Senkamen opens and reveals a very hostile welcoming party waiting for me. Before me stand 6 giants much bigger than Mount Everest, escorted by enemy Shinigami wearing silver and black robes, 3 of them wearing golden haori in addition to those robes. The Royal Army and 3 of the Royal Guard. Also, the 6 giants are no doubt powerful elementals of this world. This was supposed to be a vacation, and this is an excellent way for it to start. The people here have strengthened the local elemental spirits with their magic, and now I face 6 of the strongest. One is made of stone, a roughly man-shaped giant whose hands bear an immense broadsword that looks like it was crudely chiseled from stone, and a warhammer with one head spiked, the other flat and broad, also made from stone. Then there is a horse-shaped giant made from water, which bears sharp fangs and grows a long horn suddenly, spreading wings of ice. The third is another man-shaped giant, made from ice, while the fourth, also man-shaped, is made from both solid rock and molten stone. The fifth is in the shape of a man as well, and I am unamused by the lack of variety in shape, though this one is made of wood, bushes growing upon its surface. The sixth and last is a dragon-shaped being of metal and fire, its hide made of black iron, breathing steam and smoke. Welcome, traitor, one of the royal guards says. You bring the elementals of a mountain, a glacier, a volcano, a sea, a forest, and if I am not mistaken, a war elemental of metal against me, one of those created long ago. You also have 100 of the royal army and 3 of your own number, I call back. Indeed. You will be put down today, traitor, the man declares. I see. So it is battle. Perfect, I reply, then bow to my opponents before I select and draw my blade. Kenpachi Yamamoto Ichigo, captain of the 8th Division, and I was Shibakayan, lieutenant of the 13th Division in my last life, I say, introducing myself. Gudomamoru, the man answers, and a fist comes crashing down at me from the volcano elemental. Member of the Royal Guard. No more talking, I say, dodging the opening blow with a flicker of Shunpo, and meeting the first 2 of the Royal Army to reach me with unsheathed blade. Both are already in Shikai, but that matters not at all so far as I am concerned. I note their weapons, a spear and a long scythe, and slip between their first strikes, using the fact that we are 13 kilometers above the ground to my advantage. I meet the scythe's return blow with a diversion from my katana, then lock the blade with mine, turn, and use the lock to throw my enemy, sending him for an impromptu flight lesson along with his Zanpakuto. My armor stops the attempt of the spear to slip between its plates, and I turn back to my other foe, only to receive a bolt of lightning to the face from the spear tip. Perhaps we might fight alongside you, Ichigo. Sanbon suggests as I bring my muscles under control after the shock sent me into a temporary frenzy of motion as it disrupted my nervous system. I managed to use that frenzy to bat aside 2 following bolts of lightning and a thrust form the spear though, so I am content with the results. I spin away from a questing blade and make my decision. Of course, I answer, and Sanbon is manifested within a moment, the Zanpakuto in full armor, rather than wearing the kimono I usually see her in. I will be most grateful for the assistance from any of you who feel like joining in this particular fight, I declare to the Zanpakuto within my inner world, and 3 more manifest. Sode no Shirayuki, Suzumashi, and Zangetsu. Shall we dance? Sode no Shirayuki asks her first opponent, a tall male, bowing to him. We shall whirl and twirl and prove Ichigo-sama is best, Suzumashi begins. There is naught of heart within your breast, she declares to her opponent, a woman clad in full armor similar to Sanbon. You are offensive to my eyes, Sanbon declares. Become blood and dust, and vanish from my sight. I is the only word Zangetsu feels necessary to say to his foe, a man who apparently took beauty lessons from Kuretsuchi Taichman Yumichika. The result is uniquely hideous. Tenkai, Zangetsu declares, preparing to face his foe as his aspect shifts, the darkness within becoming clear and deadly as shadows stream forth from his cloak. The sun is blocked out by darkness, even as chains appear on Zangetsu's arms and legs, a collar around his neck. The chains burn golden, but shadows swirl around Zangetsu, blackening them. Bankai Sanbon declares, summoning what she feels is the minimum force needed. Zangetsu always did like overkill. Bankai, Suzumashi declares, following closely after Sanbon, choosing not to use more than the minimum force needed. Those 2 are far more precise about their killing than some. Bankai Sode no Shirayuki speaks last of the group and she and her opponent are swiftly concealed by a snowstorm. Well, looks like we're all alone, I say to the 3 Royal Guard members. My Zanpakuto are keeping their own fights in the way of anyone joining ours, and I like my odds. We all have the higher releases, but I have more Zanpakuto. I also have armor and reach on all 3 of them, 2 males and 1 female. Pain? The woman asks, and I nod as I allow my helm to dematerialize for a moment. I suddenly have a sneaking suspicion, which I very much do not like. I round on her, prioritizing her as the greatest threat, and switch which blade I am using, my other hand beginning to glow as I prepare to unleash a barrage of kidm. Miyako? I ask after getting a good look at her. You're dead. I saw the body. My death was faked. I wanted to tell you about me joining the Royal Guard, but I was forbidden to. They wanted to recruit me and made the arrangements, taught me Bankai and everything. They said that if you had survived, you would have been brought in as well, Kayan, she explains. But you can join now. We can be together again, husband and wife. I know you not, I growl, crushing the sentiment that threatens to rise. Suitan Sakamake, Nejibana, I snarl, releasing the trident form of my Shikai. Nejibana is furious at Miyako, feeling she should stand with me against the Spirit King. I refuse to waver in this fight, and I will have vengeance against the Spirit King for this. I will bring you to your senses, Kayan, Miyako vows. Chiquito, Arashi no Ko, she declares. Rage, Stormchild, her katana becomes a long spear with a crescent blade mounted at the end, instead of a straight blade. Atsuki Nariyari, as they are called. The other 2 release into Shikai as well, one suddenly wielding a Kageyari, and the other wields a Sankakuyari, the first Shinigami, Kudomamoru having a blade with wind currents whistling around it, the second, as yet unnamed, has his spear point made of ice. Join and I won't hold your defiance against you. We are the three spears of the king, Kain. You could be the fourth though. Just give in, and we'll fight together once more, she declares. I answer by spinning my trident, generating a shield of water. Not happening. Head 90, Kurohitsugi, I declare, unleashing the kid even as my trident bats aside the first probing strike from the Sankaku Yari. From the tip of the enemy's spear, a spike of ice launches forth, the tip separating from the shaft, just as I bat it aside, the spike deflected by the spinning shaft of Nejibana. Miyako is enveloped by the kid even as I spin to meet the slashing strike from Mamoru's Kageyari, harmonizing with my blade. Flow with the waves of battle, Ichigo, Nejibana reminds me as I bring a wave crashing down on Mamoru's head, dodging away from the Sankaku Yari yet again, which has its blade suddenly extend to try and pierce my armor and heart yet again. It pierces into my shoulder instead, and I hiss in pain as I grab the shaft of the weapon, its wielder panicking. Miyako has broken free from my hand, bloodied and furious. Her spear comes down, and a lightning bolt rains down on me from the sky, even as I thrust the Sankaku Yari further through my shoulder, dragging its wielder in close. We are both struck by the lightning, which melts my armor to my skin, wherever there is no kid-reinforced cloth from my uniform to get in the way, specifically my gauntlets and my forearms. My helm I astralized just as the lightning struck to avoid my head and helm being fused together, as well I could regenerate that, it would be annoying. I materialize my helm again before Miyako can take advantage of the opportunity and laugh grimly as I finish dragging my only unnamed opponent within reach, 4 meters of spear shaft now through my shoulder, the shaft suddenly surrounded by spikes of ice that form in rings all around it, piercing into my left hand and my shoulder, multiple rings of ice spikes piercing into me. Then becoming serrated as the rings of ice begin to spin and the spikes lengthen. You won't be able to hold on, the man says. It's far too painful. I am a Kenpachi, I growl, beginning to laugh. The more pain I'm in, the more fun I'm having in a fight, I say in a malevolent whisper, almost as if revealing some dark secret. So spill my blood. Break my bones. All you do is cause me to enjoy this even more, I say, and grab him with my right hand, the hand holding Nejibana, shaking him with sudden strength. He holds onto his spear, and I use that point of resistance to shake him hard enough to shatter his bones. He screams, and I laugh as I crush his skull with the hammer of my fist, then break his spear with my other hand, Shinigami and broken Zanpakuto falling to the ground far below. I rip the other piece out of my shoulder and astralize my helm again, revealing the grin on my face. Who's next? I ask, laughing. I will put you down, Kain. It's for your own good, Miyako decides, and lunges at me, spear slashing up in an attempt to cut me in half, using the groin as a starting point. I meet her spear with the shaft of Nejibana and spin our 2 blades, whirling her about until I break the lock and throw her towards Zanpakuto's blossom cloud. Now I remember why I objected to the creation of your kind, Kenpachi, Mamoru says. You are monsters who live only for battle. Careful. Your stupidity is showing, I mock him as I crash into him, my armored bulk meeting his strength, as spears clash between us, shafts grinding against each other, as he tries to force me away, too close for either of us to employ the bladed ends of our spears. What is the job of Shinigami, other than to fight? The dagger thrust from Mamoru, who apparently has knives for backup weaponry, gets me in the gut, burying 18 inches of spirit steel in my internal organs. To uphold justice and follow the path of least bloodshed, he growls. Bankai. Kei's Kaminakari, he states. Wind God's fury. Well, this should be fun, I say as I am thrown back by a tornado of razor winds, which slice into me, some piercing weak spots in my armor, and leaving blood running down the plate from various points on my torso. I keep my regeneration from closing any of the wounds I've gotten so far, though I do make sure any blood loss is kept under control. I feel alive, as I haven't in far too long. I throw back my head and laugh loudly as my opponent is revealed. He carries a Kusarigama now, though the connection of the 2 weapons, the spiked blade and curved blade, is made of a length of sharpened steel, rather than chain links. He lashes out, and the weight winds around me, the steel wrapping around my armor and cutting into me. I bring Nejibana crashing down on the steel, and he cries out as he loses his grip from the force of the blow, instead slicing his hands open on steel. Now we're both bleeding. So let's have fun. We can't bring this to an end too quickly, after all, I say, and unwrap the weight from around me, tossing it back to him. I will kill you, Kenpachi. Tausen will be avenged, you monster, Mamoru snarls. Miyako is almost back to the fight, so I suppose I need to get this done with sooner than I'd like. Miyako is bleeding from Zanpakuto's blossoms and is utterly, incandescently, angry. She has used her own bankai and now clutches a 2-pronged spear, almost like a trident with no middle blade. Lightning crackles between the 2 prongs, and as she spins the spear, a tornado of razor winds rush out, catching me head-on, meeting a spinning shield of water. Nice, I compliment Miyako. Now let's see if the wrath of a woman scorned can actually be useful against me, I laugh, summoning the blood from Mamoru's wounds. There is water in blood after all. He grits his teeth as I begin to drag the blood from his body until a spear of ice suddenly pierces into my right knee, sent by Miyako. You finally figured out how to use something from storms besides wind and lightning, then? I ask my former wife. Well done. I congratulate her with 1,000 needles of ice. But learn from the master of water element related strikes. Ice is just frozen water after all, I say, melting the spear in my leg, then sending the needles at Miyako. She meets all but 3 with a shield of wind, but the 3 that meet strike hard. I am Kenpachi, weaklings. Fear me, I declare. I, Kenpachi, Miyako screams. Your curse has consumed Kain, and now I will avenge him. I meet her blade with my own, locking the 2 pole arms, even as my left fist crashes into her gut. The blade of the Kusarigama wielded by Mamoru slices into my side through armor, flesh, and bone, then I keep it there, regenerating bone and flesh around it, trapping the blade. I use it to drag Mamoru in, and Miyako's next thrust of her spear goes through his chest. I, Kenpachi, are the last words Mamoru speaks. Then he explodes, Miyako leaping away. I stay silent for a few moments as the fire of the explosion settles, armor battered, respecting his noble sacrifice, even if it was misguided. Is he dead? Miyako asks no one in particular. I answer with laughter, deep and rumbling across the field, the sound of an avalanche coming from my throat. Finally, I feel alive again, I exult, my blood rushing through my body as I erupt into a gale of laughter, the smoke clearing around me. The royal guard is making a poor showing today. Show me Tenkai, Miyako. Show me your greatest strength. If you have gone beyond Tenkai, show me, and prove that you are a warrior to be respected, rather than a traitor to be despised and cut down like a rabid dog. Fine. Tenkai, Miyako spits out. Arashi o Yobu, kamikaze, she declares. Call the storm, divine wind. Anything else? I ask hopefully, only to receive a shake of the head from my final opponent. Very well. Tenkai, I say in return. Ikari nai kuru, shinkai no jam, I proclaim. Go mad with fury, queen of the ocean depths, understand something, Miyako. Nejibana has always been the raging seas. You're just seeing the rage of the oceans come closer to the surface now, I tell her as our new weapons are revealed. She is carrying 2 long spears now, with the blades of hook swords on one end and long dagger-like blades on the other end. The dagger blades have wind swirling around them and on examination are made of serrated blades of ice, while the hook swords crackles with lightning. A rainstorm is beginning above, which turns into a snowstorm as Sode no Shirayuki's Bankai joins with it. The elementals and more of the royal army watch, unable to join the fight but quite able to observe. There are more for the slaughter soon, then. My new weapon is also a pair of weapons, but in this case it consists of a replica of Nejibana's Shikai and Inurumi, which uncoils as I ready for battle. I will kill you and find your next incarnation so we can be together again, Kain, Miyako says with resolve in her tone. Let's just worry about the first 4 words of that statement for now, I say, calming from the fury I had when I first realized she was turned against me. I still care for her, but I can't afford to show her mercy. However this turns out though, know that I'm happy you've gotten so strong, Miyako, I say cheerfully, astralizing my armor and helm, smiling at her. Now, let's both give it everything we have, so there's no regrets about this fight, I continue, and lash out with the Urumi, which has water erupt from its edges, a high-pressure jet of liquid that will treat solid stone as if it's air. The blade, widened by these jets, twists to try to cut Miyako in half at the waist, but is blocked by a shield of wind created by one of the spears, even as a lightning bolt rushes towards me, getting batted aside by my Tenkai's trident component. I rush towards her even as I retract the Urumi, then snap the blade out slightly, making it about the length of a katana and rigid, high-pressure streams of water rushing along its edges. My biggest advantages here are size and strength. I plan to use them both to my advantage and leave Miyako nowhere to escape to. Our spears clash, and I bat aside the first spear with Shinkai no Jam's trident part, sending my katana rushing forward, even as Miyako brings her other spear towards me. We pierce each other's hearts at the same time. Looks like a mutual kill, Kain, Miyako laughs. I shake my head. Missed one of my hearts, Miyako-chan, I say. No regrets? I ask, and she nods. None. It was a good fight, Kenpachi Kain, she declares, blood beginning to trickle from her mouth as blue light begins to surround her. I'll see you again. Until then, keep my Zanpakuto safe in one of those halls of the fallen, okay? She asks, and I nod. I will return immediately after this fight to make sure her Zanpakuto is safe, but first I will end my other foes. Be safe until we meet again. I will, Miyako, I reply, and she dissolves into Raishi, even as the way clears for more opponents to reach me, Zanpakuto ending her fight in victory. Zangetsu's opponent falls from the sky a moment later, the dome of darkness that had fallen around that fight dissolving, but the skies remain darkened. Suzumashi finished off her opponent quickly and now joins me, as she was waiting at the edge of my battle to respect that it was my fight, and so no Shirayuki apparently already claimed another half-dozen opponents after the first one died. Who's next? I call to the Royal Army, my Zanpakuto standing alongside me. I've lost one heart, I'm bleeding from 100 minor wounds, one of my shoulders and one of my knees are ripped to shreds, my skin is just now reforming where my armor ripped away my skin and muscle from my arms and forearms when I astralized it, and I'm having fun. Kill him. One of the Royal Army members shrieks, and I am charged by the 80 or so remaining foes. Zanpakuto meets them with a cloud of blossoms, elegantly turning 3 to blood and dust in moments, as a wave of absolute darkness claims another 20, sent forth by Zangetsu. The elementals roar, and I select the sea elemental for my opponent as the horse-shaped beast charges. Bring it, horse, I laugh, and a wave erupts from my trident, crashing into the horse and sweeping part of its mass away, the water returning to the earth. The beast repairs itself, recreating the leg I destroyed, but is now noticeably smaller. A wave of molten rock is sent at me by the volcano elemental, and a wave of water, summoned from the sea elemental, meets the molten rock, cooling it and turning it to stone in a cloud of steam. The sea shrieks in rage, turning on the volcano and crashing into it, summoning waves of water from the air to both add to itself and attack with, even as the volcano calls forth molten stone. I feel one of my wounds close in an uncomfortable manner as the forest moves forward and notice blades of grass growing together in the wound and starting to grow throughout me, using my flesh to fuel its growth. Nice try, I say, and seal Nijabana in favor of Rikyunjaka. Banch miss I Kajin tenace, Rikyunjaka, I declare, unleashing my Shikai. Burn. Tamatsu, I command as flame engulfs me, a firestorm shrouding my being, every wound of mine being seared closed by fire, and from the firestorm, yet more flames erupt, scorching the forest elemental. Rikyunjaka, I hear one of the surviving Royal Army members whisper, the silence suddenly complete, all the Shinigami shocked into ceasing fighting. Their error is corrected when blades erupt through their chests, courtesy of my Zanpakuto, but by then it is too late to make up for the mistake. The forest screams, and I watch the flames rush up and down the massive elemental, engulfing the creature. Burn the ichigo. Reduce ice to water. Stone to fused rock, cooling slowly under the skies. Metal to a molten mass. Wood to ash. Water to steam. Burn everything, Ichigo, Rikyunjaka commands me, and I laugh even as the sea reduces the volcano elemental to a giant statue, the weight of water finally cooling the volcano's lave into stone. Moments later, blades of water pressure and crushing force exerted by yet more water crumble the weakened volcano elemental to dust. Now too weak to manifest its body again, I feel the volcano elemental flee, followed by the forest elemental, which abandons its created form to crumble into ashes. 2 have already fallen. Now burn the rest. Burn anything that dares stand against you. You wield my fires. If necessary, you may reduce the universe to ash. Now show them, Rikyunjaka insists. Very well, I reply within my mind. Very well, I repeat to the world. Bankai. Zanka no Tachi. They are doomed, Zangetsu observes. Zanka no Tachi. To Ninagia. Sub each Maite no Senka, I declare, and unleash a wave of superheated plasma as the mountain charges me, bringing its hammer down in an attempt to crush me. The plasma burns into it around its chest, then compresses into a sphere, drawing in stone and air with the compression. A moment later, just before the hammer is at the point of no return, the sphere explodes, vaporizing the chest and the neck of the mountain elemental's body, leaving the rest of the body to crumble into small stones and dust as the elemental flees. The glacier observes, and then, acting sensibly, its body collapses into water, followed by the ocean. Only the war elemental, an elemental created through magic thousands of years before for the sole purpose of fighting, remains. It will not flee. The metal dragon spreads its wings, and I meet it in the skies, blade crashing into its lower jaw and slicing through it. The dragon roars, and I vanish in a flicker of shunpo as it spits molten iron at me. I reappear upon its back and feel one of my feet land in the long place, impaling itself on a spike along the dragon-shaped beast's back. Fire and steam are erupting from vents along its back, and I plunge Zanka no Tachi into one of them, focusing my next strike into an attack directed from the tip of the blade, not the edge. End it, Ichigo, Rikyunjaka orders. I obey with alacrity. Zanka no Tachi. Kita. Tenchi Kajin, I say, sending the flames that may incinerate the universe froth from the tip of my blade and into the elemental's body, where they spread through it with a fury, the beast crumbling to ashes only moments later, the fires consuming the air that rushes in where it once was, until I seal them once more. It is done, I declare, seeing the last of the royal army dissolving into Reishi. Thank you for your help, friends, I say to my Zanpakuto. It was a pleasure to fight alongside you. Indeed, Zangetsu declares, and vanishes. Call whenever we are needed, Ichigo-sama, Suzumashi says happily. I enjoyed this fight as well. I concur. Whenever you require allies in battle, call and we will come to your side, my lord Sanbonsakura proclaims, and she vanishes alongside Suzumashi, leaving Soli Sode no Shirayuki behind. It was a pleasure to dance on the same field where you danced, Ichigo Sode no Shirayuki says, appearing before me as I concentrate, using a bit of divine power to repair my robes and armor, even as my regeneration begins to fix my wounds, carefully controlled so it won't fix them too quickly. But I am not yet done dancing today, she declares, and we begin to dance on the battlefield, the steps to the calling of a mighty snowstorm, her power synchronizing with mine, as I sense snow are summoned to grace these skies and bring peace to the land below, which observed my battle upon this day. The steps begin without my even noticing that Sode no Shirayuki has taken my hands, and ice begins to creep over my body, my armor still dematerialized, the flow of my blood slowing. As we call the blizzard, the dance turns wild and passionate, the fury of the storm building, as howling winds begin to make their appearance, clouds forming as snowflakes begin to prepare for their fall to the earth. The sun, shining for only a short time after Zangetsu left, taking his darkness with him, is blocked out once more. Or rather, the suns. There are 3 suns shining upon this world, and all are blocked out by the snow clouds that reach from one horizon to the next, and further yet. Let us call a storm they will speak of for all time, Sode no Shirayuki whispers in my ear, the dance becoming coldly formal, but still clearly of the wild. Now we call ice, not just the storm winds. Indeed, I reply, and throw myself into the dance, the steps coming from instinct as I abandon myself and become the caller of the storm. Let us summon a storm to teach this world true winter, even if only for a single day, I declare, pleasure flowing through me as the calling of the storm calls to the wild fury of my curse, the two mixing and bringing to me wild exultation. Yamajiji, consider yourself to be a dead man, I growl. I just returned to this damned world where I actually saw a real fight, but this time, my Sin came and directed me to the largest city in this world, high within the treetops. Here, the largest trees grow to the point where they stretch beyond the clouds, the very largest trees stretching nearly 400 kilometers into the sky, with canopies suitably broad to match that. The forests in which those trees grow stretch for hundreds of thousands of kilometers across, the lowest levels being full of predators and feral elementals, so naturally I want to travel down towards the forest floor. However, I am traveling towards the top of one of these cities, moving through the levels of the city itself. To facilitate the building of cities, the main branches of some of those immense trees were encouraged to grow together, and as those branches are wide enough that you could march an army of warriors equal to Sajin in size and bulk, 1,000 ranks wide along the front line across them, and still only be occupying a tenth of the space, the beginnings of the city were easily made. Homes began to be carved out of the sides of the branches, caverns easily accessed by the local population. On the tops of the large branches, platforms were grown from them using the elemental magic of the locals. Each tree grows 12 branches in each ring, then will grow another ring roughly 20 years later, after growing roughly a kilometer, give or take a couple hundred meters. The platforms connect the branches together and have both buildings upon them for guests unable to climb to one of the guest houses carved into the sides of the immense branches and temples to the local gods, among other things. Nearly 500 trees were encouraged to grow their branches together to form the city, and it exists in several layers, dictated by the branch rings. Each branch, provided it hadn't been turned into the basis for a city, would have eventually sent out runners down towards the soil below, and if those runners found sufficient purchase, a new tree would have been born, connected to the old by the original branch that spawned it. If the runners did not find sufficient nutrients, they would be cut off from the tree, eventually becoming feral elementals of the element of wood, spawned from the original, much stronger elemental that was the parent tree. However, branches that joined as these ones have never spawned their own tree and elemental. However, it is not only forests that exist on this immense, unspoiled world. There are also plains that go on for millions of kilometers without end, filled with the constantly dangerous feral elementals and predators, as everywhere on this world is, mountain ranges where I could travel at maximum speed using Shunpo, and still not see the entire range in anything less than a month, oceans that are vast and dangerous, ice fields, deserts, and much more. Here, in the forests, there are even dangerous plants. And best of all, they have the potential to challenge me. Who are you vowing to kill? One of my escort, a mage who specializes in the manipulation of water, asks. Here, magic is achieved through the channeling of elementals, mainly, though there are magics that are done without elemental involvement. My great-grandfather. A master of fire whose blade burns as hot as the sun, I elaborate, and one of the mages escorting me, a specialist in manipulating fire, gasps. One so powerful is beyond anything I have ever heard of, she says, and I grin widely. I am not currently manifesting my armor, feeling it sadly unnecessary. The only threat in the city is to my sense of shame. Apparently, they never invented clothing in this damned world, which is filled with catgirls. Every single female appears to be a fusion of human and feline, having a coat of fur that doesn't manage to conceal anything, twitching cat ears, whiskers, and a tail, along with retractable claws within their fingers and toes, which they use to climb. Otherwise, they appear to be perfectly normal human females. I hate Yamajiji's idea of vacations. Here, sashes are worn around the waist, indicating the profession of the wearer by color, and the images woven on it, and jewelry of varying types indicates rank. The only other thing worn is a collar around the neck, inscribed with images in miniature, each image imbued with the memory of a past achievement of the wearer. I am an oddity, being taller than most around, with heavier muscle than any of my escorts clear on my body, my robes and uniform another oddity. Of course he's strong, I reply to the mage. Otherwise, why would I fight him? I ask in a curious tone. There would be no reason, the mage answers. Are you a guardian? I look at her with one eyebrow raised, and she elaborates. You are clearly used to wearing armor of some type, apparently heavy plate, given how you move. You bear weapons as if you're used to wearing them in their harnesses at all times. Your hands bear the calluses of weapons practice, and your muscles are far too developed to be for anything but the application of violence or some craft, though I can think of no craft that would develop the muscle structure you have, or the familiarity with wearing armor. Your eyes are also alert, checking everything around you. I take it guardians are your warriors. I rumble, my voice becoming deeper as I begin to anticipate the possibility of a proper fight, even if it will only be a spar, ahead. They are those too foolish to simply allow themselves to study our arts of magic or seek pleasure, the fire user responds. They learn how to craft and use weapons and seek ways to turn magic to destruction and death. Without fail, their bonded elementals are belligerent and dangerous to interact with, being barely better than feral elementals. If you are one like them, I advise you to simply study magic or the arts of beauty and pleasure, as almost all of our race do, she chides me, and I laugh loudly. I seek battle, yes, I respond, my voice sounding like an onrushing avalanche. Cold, powerful, and deadly. I wield my blades in the service of my duty, and have spilled the blood of my foes upon the earth. I seek sweet conflict and raging strife, the song of ruin and woe runs strong in my blood. I am a Shinigami, and mine is to see that all souls pass to their rightful rest. However, I am, among Shinigami, unique or nearly so. I am a bearer of the curse of the Kenpachi, and thus I seek battle for its own sake. To study solely the arts of peace is beyond me now. All that waits for me in my future is conflict, doom and destruction, I declare, fierce joy singing in my blood. You are a death seeker, one of the escorts, a priestess of one of the local goddesses, I know not and care not which, says. A death seeker? I ask. The guardian who seeks battle for the joy of dancing with death. A fierce protector when guarding others, but when alone, they will dance on that edge with death, seeing how close they can come. Travelers usually, they abandon fear. Their families consider them dead the moment they choose that path, though some renounce it after getting their fill of that pleasure, the priestess answers. Yes. I am something like that, I reply, satisfied with this description. I believe you will be in better company among the guardians than you would be if I had you lodged in guest quarters, the priestess states. I nod, satisfied with that idea. The guardians reside on the highest level, just above the main level where the great temples are built. They would never turn away a death seeker asking for lodging. Good. Now, how many gods are there in this world? I ask curiously. There are several. Originally, they were merely mighty elementals, the strongest of their kind, but eventually they grew into divinities. However, two were not elementals, but concepts before they became divine, the priestess answers. So, earth or mountains, metal, wood or forests, fire, wind, water, sand or deserts, presumably one related to volcanoes and another to ice or winter, one related to life, one for death, and probably three related to fate or time, correct? I figure out from what I know of this world from the files I glanced and the usual way of such things. Correct on all counts. There are also two gods, one for War and his brother, who is Lord of Destruction, but War has been chained beneath the earth and Destruction chained above the sky for 69,000 years, the priestess replies. After they were chained, the goddess of life, queen of the gods, instructed us to no longer concern ourselves with the arts of war, but rather to seek pleasure in the world and the creation of life, she states, her words alarming me. Though with the birth rate of males, there are few enough lives created. You breed true with any of the other races inhabiting this world, correct? I ask, and she nods. However, those races are few and seclusive, and none of them have male birth rates much better than your own. So I presume you use magic to allow your population to continue growing or at the very least sustain your numbers. I inquire. Correct. Though since we have lifespans measured in millennia, with many still being alive who remember when war and destruction were chained, and only now approaching the middle of their lifespan, our population manages fairly well, the priestess replies cheerily. Though we are always looking for a little help in making it grow, she continues, clearly appraising me. I am born to war and death. My duty is my life, and I was raised to perform it, I say, realizing that my statement is actually true in both lives, first as a noble trained from birth to be a Shinigami, and then as a human raised with a sense of duty and trained in basic martial skills by my father. You know, presumably, what my nature is, I say, trying to figure out a way to explain, just in case. Yes. We all know of what you Shinigami are, the priestess says. After all, one of your kind was the one who bound the two gods, or at least taught us how to do so ourselves. We also know you're perfectly capable of siring children. So what prevents you? She asks curiously. I gesture at the forest floor, clearly visible nearly 300 kilometers below. We are only 2 levels from my destination now, and she looks curiously down. The lower levels. Those are dangerous to go to, even for a guardian. I will throw myself into the fight without hesitation and count any result good, so long as the foe challenges me, I say, trying to figure out how to explain what I am. To create life. It is not a thing for me, not until peace comes for the Serite Guard. I see. But that's foolish, the priestess says. I decide to dismiss the point and vanish into Shunpo, ending the conversation, reappearing standing upon the air about halfway up to the next level. I vanish again and reappear at the place where I will enter the main temple level, a simple gate within the platform of wood, more like a trapdoor actually, which is sealed with magic. I settle in to wait for my escort. You should have waited for us, one of the mages says when they finally catch up. Being escorted by a priestess of each goddess and a dozen mages was somewhat interesting, showing the diversity of their magical abilities and their religion, but the conversation swiftly grew boring. Not continued on to the way ahead. It's not a case of I should have been slower, I reply lazily. You should have been faster. The trapdoor opens, and I am naturally the first through, though this time I wait for my escort. However, before we get to the main temple, we find a commotion blocking our way. The large square of open space, a ritual area, is filled with senior priestesses surrounding a male warrior, chains of energy binding him, extending from the priestesses. He has 3 heads. One is the head of a crow, another is the head of a hyena, and the third is the head of a lion. He stands roughly equal to me in size, with my 325 centimeters of height, granting me maybe a centimeter or 2 on him, and his muscles are immense, bulked to a simply obscene level, though clearly only shadows of what they once were. His eyes are a sickly yellow mixed with blood red, his fur is shining black, as except for the 3 heads, he is clearly a male of the same species as my escorts. He wears armor on his legs and arms, but leaves his chest bare, displaying several scars, including scars from wounds that should have been fatal. He radiates divine power, and the immense broadsword across his back and the scything tiger claws on his left hand indicate only one possibility as to his identity. Oh no, one of the priestesses escorting me says. I think I can guess who he is. So he escaped, I wonder, as he spreads leathery, ragged wings of pure black. I think over things, rather than reacting in the reflex the Kenpachi's curse is demanding of me, and draw one of my blades. If it becomes a fight, I will need to be moving as fast as possible. Sadly, my armor will slow me down and be useless against divine strength. I really need to get around to reinforcing it with my divine power one of these days. I will have to hope that I can avoid a fight given the area however. Kudakero, Kyoka Sujetsu, I say even as I shunpo into the circle and cut the bindings, veiling the sight of all others with illusion. I see you figured out what I was doing, my potential enemy says. Yes. You were using the binding as a channel to drain their life force, so as to renew your strength, I state, and all 3 of his heads nod in answer. Correct. And I believe you know who I am? I nod in reply, and he grins. I am Tythos, Lord of War, brother to Pirias, Lord of Destruction. I guessed that already. The only thing I didn't know was your name, and I don't care about that. I take it you are going to be attempting to provoke wars here? I ask, and receive a nod in reply. War is necessary in some cases, I muse, remembering certain things I picked up from my time as a servant in the Grail War, information I gained from the temporary connection to Akasha. To have endless peace invites the loss of the ability to fight, I say, unsealing Kyoka Sujetsu and releasing it again as several newcomers arrive. When war comes, as it will without doubt, either from within or without, that ability will be needed. Exactly. However, my brother does not serve so necessary a purpose, Tytho says, his eyes focusing on me. He is not one to allow destruction to come by natural means. And unlike me, imprisonment has driven him quite insane. I must release him, as he has half my power sealed with him, just as half his power was sealed with me. However, when released, he will spread destruction. Before, I was all for causing the world to burn in the flames of war. I desired to burn every home, sow every field with salt, leave the world broken and barren of all life, except for the carrion birds, he declares. I ready to shift to a different sword, considering my options for combat, considering the area I'm in, which is not a good one for me to fight in. However, imprisonment has changed me as well. I don't want one quick war, which burns the earth. No, I've decided sustainability is the best way. Smaller wars, ones that are more manageable, he muses. I relax slightly, but still prepare to act on a heartbeat's notice. I see, I say, watching him carefully. You know and I know that you are not allowed to end the life of one of the living without a good reason. You can kill those you are ordered to kill as well, so long as the balance between life and death is maintained, correct? Tythos asks. Correct, I growl, ready to fight. I know the powers of your blades. You can't use any shikai of above mid-range in power. After all, some shikai release more power than others, and no one here has any spiritual resistance. You would kill thousands simply by using shikai. I can disrupt any spiritual freeze. If you used your Owl Slayer ability, you would release Kai no Ti no Megami, and you know what accompanies every attack from that, he says. An energy blast on par with a mid-range Jitsuga Tenshin from Zangetsu's Bankai. A blast that is wide area enough that it wouldn't only catch you in it, I say, growling. Excalibur may be sharp, but it also releases too much power. Also, if I used any attack from it that could hurt you, it would also be a wide area attack. Anything that isn't precise, limited only to attacking and exerting power upon you, will either catch people in my attack, or they will be affected by the Reiatsu released and killed by it, I snarl. Yes. Your Kyoka Sujetsu is well controlled and will not be able to kill others with its effects. However, it is not a suitable weapon against me. Without your own divine power behind the illusions, I can break them fairly easily. However, in a match of divine power, I would win through experience. My imprisonment did not weaken me beyond taking half of my power from me, due to the fact that it imprisoned me within a well of power from the world itself, which was more than adequate to keep me from weakening. I have experience and I am not bound to avoid doing harm to the living. You, bound to protect them, had to sever the ties that made me able to drain their life force. I can use that to my advantage if this becomes a fight, Shinigami, Tytho states calmly, and I growl in rage. Yes. You can. If I use Wabasuk, I can cause your blade to become heavier, along with the rest of you, but that will take some time to actually help, I muse, considering my options. If I use his true Shikai, I can force you to the ground far below, but that effect is wide area, and a dangerous ability considering that it would apply to this tree as well. The tree is an elemental of sufficient power that it would be severely affected. You would bring the city crashing to the ground, Tythos laughs. Exactly. Suzumabachi would not give me the needed offensive and defensive capability. Tobium, Hineko, Senbonzakura, and Ashisogi Jizo are not precise enough, given the fireballs, clouds of blades that cut everything nearby, which you could use to your advantage, or the clouds of poison. My abilities are largely indiscriminate. However, I believe you have a compromise. I ask, and he nods. Yes. You help me free my brother. Right now. I will need your divine power to assist me, as it requires two gods or a mortal's free choice to release my brother. After all, mortals, unlike you, me, and most other beings of power, possess free will and the ability to thus decide their own path, so long as certain events decreed by fate come to pass, Tytho states. True. I am limited to some extent by certain laws, though since my existence was originally that of a human, I am somewhat less limited than most, I reply. However, I do not qualify as mortal, and I am bound more thoroughly than even the strongest mortal being is, rendering me unable to make any choice requiring a mortal's will. Yes. Now, you help me free my brother. Then, we kill him together. He is a primordial being, much like myself, and at full power, he will have to be opposed by both of us. There is only one weapon and one person that can kill either of us, but your Owl Slayer gets around that, yes? Tythos inquires, and I nod in confirmation. Or your Zanpakuto containing all the treasures of the world would possibly contain that weapon as well, and you could probably get around the other requirement, he states. Correct on both counts. Either would work. However, I know you will be doing your best to kill me directly afterwards, I say, and he nods. Of course. Your kind is responsible for binding me originally. I hate you, and the only thing keeping me from killing you right now is that I cannot deal a killing blow until I'm at full power again. My brother surviving is contrary to my new aims. I want to have an endless supply of power from wars rather than one short immense flow of power. He just wants to destroy anything that exists. So, we kill him. Then we do our best to kill each other, Tythos proposes. Fine. But a few ground rules first. When we're fighting, if you get in my way, I'll kill you first. I'm not turning my back on you for any reason if there aren't at least 40 kilometers between us. Same for sleeping. I don't sleep without a minimum of 40 kilometers between us. And you don't try any tricks or attack me before we've dealt with your brother. Your binding word on it, I demand. Fine, Tythos replies. You have my word to all those terms. Excellent, I reply. Most beings of power cannot go back on their sworn word, though that binding is stronger the more powerful the being is. For a being like myself or Tythos, to make even a verbal contract involving our sworn word is equivalent to inscribing our oath in stone, using our own blood as ink, and binding the oath with magic. Unbreakable by any means. To actually make a contract in writing is a thing so binding for me that I can't just worry about the spirit of the agreement, but rather have to follow every term to the letter, holding to the original intent of the contract. Now, let's go, I say, and the illusion I wove shows Tythos breaking his bindings and vanishing, with the illusion of myself summoning his armor and pursuing using Shunpo. For myself, I leisurely walk over to Tythos, grab his arm, and vanish into Shunpo, reappearing at the edge of the platform. There are no observers nearby, but to be cautious, I use Kiden to bend light around both of us, rendering us invisible as I seal Kyoka Sujetsu. Heading down to the forest floor. Not a bad idea. We need to travel to get to the place where I can unseal my brother, and traveling overland will be simpler than traveling by divine power, Tythos says. Then I casually shrug and jump off of the platform, plummeting slightly over 300 kilometers, Tythos dragged behind me. Preparing for impact, I summon my armor. The weight itself is tedious, as I can only fall so fast, but eventually I get to my destination, the forest floor. I land hard, despite allowing my knees to bend, so I might absorb the impact, and using air walking to slow myself down every so often, so I didn't land too hard for me to handle without regeneration. Shortly afterwards, Tythos joins me, but seeing as he was surprised by me dragging him into the fall, he lands face first, just as planned. He digs a rather nice crater in the forest floor, much like I did, and rises from it spitting out dirt. Enjoy the trip? I ask sardonically. Very much, Tythos growls. Now, let's try and avoid using any divine power on this journey. That means once we're away from this tree, no usage of divine strength that isn't internal. Anything you want to do before then? One thing, I answer, dismissing my armor. I summon my armor again a moment later, though not directly upon me, as I call to my nature as a divine being. The armor stands in front of me now, 350 centimeters of plate, all told, with my spirit weapons and Zanpakuto slung across it on the harnesses or sheathed elsewhere on the armor, the red and black paint with emerald and pink trim, forming a menacing visage. My visage when in that plate. The blue and white shoulder guard gleams, a wolf's head sigil emblazoned proudly upon it. Impressive enough in looks, Tythos says before I raise a hand to silence him. Let me concentrate, I chastise him as I begin to focus my divine power into my armor, which glows with a dark black aura as power enters it. Sigils begin to appear on the red and black plate, inscribed in midnight blue against the red and emerald against the black. At the knee and elbow joints, as well as upon both shoulder guards, skulls form, raised from the armor. The skulls are colored a lightless black, though their eyes are made of several gems fitted together, being sapphires, emeralds, amethysts, rubies, and black diamonds. Upon my gauntlets, the knuckles of my gauntlets and my armored boots have skulls appear on them as well. My trim begins to become an intricate Celtic weave as a wolf hide cloak appears on my armor, the eyes of my helm beginning to burn an eerie red. Across the chest plate stretches a winged skull, and long claws form upon my boots, serrated and ready to tear, practically curved daggers forming toes for my boots. My armor is shortly complete, ready for divine combat. I dismiss it and summon it once more upon myself, testing my range of motion, speed, and flexibility. Unlike before, the plate barely hampers my flexibility, though my speed is still an issue. My plate slows me down a bit, though my range of motion is unrestricted. Can we go now? Tythos asks. Yes. Do not speak to me while we are in transit, preferably, I say, then turn to continue on my way, summoning my bow from the Quincy cross I carry, even as I manifest a particular item I've been carrying for a while, just in case it was needed. Drawing on my own internal power, as well as gathering Reishi from the air, I prepare my bow for combat. Shortly after we leave the tree, we are attacked by a feral elemental of earth, which I swiftly dispatch with an arrow, beginning the training necessary for my surprise technique. After a month, we finally leave the forest after a trek punctuated with attacks by elementals and predators of various kinds every 5 minutes. Naturally, whenever I slept, one of my Zanpakuto stood watch, ready to act at any time if needed. Now, out on the plains, I prepare for an even longer trek as we emerge into the light of the two moons of this world, which has 3 different orbital rings surrounding it. As an aurora dances across the sky, an almost nightly occurrence here, I appreciate the fact that this world is unspoiled by cities. Now that we're under the sky, we can begin the unsealing, Tythos declares. I nod and begin to focus my divine power, allowing him to channel it as I settle in to meditate and prepare for the fight with his brother and him immediately after. I am returned, I hear a growl come from someone as yet unseen 4 hours later. A glowing circle of sigils has appeared upon the grass, and with a flash of red light, a being the size of Tythos appears in the center of it. He, like his brother, has 3 heads and ragged leathery wings, as well as being similar in build and garb. However, his fur is a darkly gleaming gold, and his heads are the heads of a vulture, a crocodile, and a bear, his tail lashing behind him. Welcome back, brother, Tythos says, drawing his sword even as Pirias, the restored Lord of Destruction, readies an immense mace. Both are back at full power, and I draw Kai no Ti no Megami. Now, if you would be so good as to die. Massacre, Kai no Ti no Megami, I declare, readying my blade. Red light flares around me, settling into my shield of power. Pirias is wielding a pair of maces, which will be irritating but not impossible to deal with. I summon my armor and prepare for the fight, unsealing my full strength. Treachery, Pirias rumbles, and I nod. Treachery, I agree, and begin the fight by using Shunpo to get behind him, my sword cutting into one of his shoulders, then I leap back as he spins around, drawing a second blade. Ugate, Gonrimaru, I command, the blade becoming a long rapier. Let us begin this duel. Die. Pirias roars, charging me. Tythos is sitting off to the side, eyes glinting in amusement. Looks like the task is fully up to me. In heaven and earth, there exists nothing that will not fall before my blade, for I am the slayer of all things, and where I walk, death and war follow me, I declare, activating Owl Slayer as the Ryatsu flaring around me turns black and gold. I continue the chant, bringing the ability to full power. I am the ender of peace, the destroyer of harmony, the end of balance. My blood is the fire of battle, my voice the terrible clangor of blade upon blade, I declare as my voice changes, becoming 1,000 war cries, the tone of hounds calling, the ring of steel on steel, the sound of screams of agony, the calls of war horns, the crackling of fires as they consume homes, and the lamentations of those left behind by the war dead. The voice of war speaks through me as I roar the chant of Owl Slayer out. I shatter the walls that are the last hope of those who seek shelter, break the blades of the defenders of the weak, bring the strong to their knees. I am strife come to call, hatred and woe, wrath and ruin. I am doom upon thee, I who end all things, firstborn child of civilization, fierce conflict given form. I roar, Kai no Ti no Megami batting aside one of Piria's maces as the Kenpachi's curse rises within, even as the other mace smashes my knee. I will kill you, Piria's vows. Better hath tried and better hath failed I declare, my tone turning archaic. I am Kenpachi and Owl Slayer, firstborn child of the strife in the minds of mortals, fiercest conflict taken form I declare. Break my bones. Spill my blood. I am Kenpachi, and pain is only an indicator that I'm having fun I whisper malevolently, my voice tearing at the fabric of the world, war threatening to spill forth across the lands, endless conflict. To call upon the power of Owl Slayer is to call death and war to consume my foe utterly. It is not an ability to be lightly used. I am Shinigami, firstborn child of life. Death come to the door, to take the soul to its rest. War and death are both my companions and myself, Lord of Destruction I elaborate. Another swing of Piria's maces is easily dodged, and a lightning bolt roars forth from Gonrimaru. Farewell, brother, Tythos says in amusement. I feel a mace crash into my left shoulder, smashing it, the spiked head digging into my flesh, even as Kai no Ti no Megami is buried in Piria's chest. I rip Kai no Ti no Megami out, the blade now covered in blood, and remove Piria's heads with a single sweep. Piria's last act is to use his mace to smash Gonrimaru's blade from the hilt. It is done I say as Piria's body crumples and falls to the ground. However, wary, I turn and immediately have to block a blow from Tythos, whose claw buries itself in my guts. For one, at least. He was inexperienced in the use of his weapons. He was also insane and incapable of fighting properly. You're the true danger here. Correct, Tythos grins and begins to launch his assault. I parry the blows from his sword with Kai no Ti no Megami as they come, dodging the blows from his claw or using the hand still holding Gonrimaru's hilt, my left hand, to bat the blows away. I'll kill you, then start a nice, never-ending war. You already threatened to unleash that every time you speak while using that power, so much of my work is already done, Tythos says. I nod in acknowledgement. True, I declare, twisting away from his blows as I prepare my next move. But it will be able to be dealt with later once I win. For now, I will simply go all out and kill you, I declare, and rain Alslayer in, containing the fierce power that runs through me. Oh really? How? Tythos demands. Bankai, I reply, calling upon Kai no Ti no Megami. Shai Senjixiano Jiku ga Uwari Ti Kai wo Wadashita Senshi Megami, I declare, unleashing the powerful Bankai upon the world, power flaring around me. Alslayer's power is more contained now, Bankai being able to allow for me to channel it better. I can kill you fairly easily now. Sure, a new war god will form over time, but it won't be you. Prepare to die, Tythos, I declare. Still best to be safe, so might as well go all out, I decide. I am he who is the mightiest of all beings, I proclaim, and my blade crashes into Tythos' blade with enough force to split a continent in two a moment later in an overhanded blow. Naturally, considering he is a god, the blow is stopped, though with some effort from him, as his claw rips out one of my lungs and one of my hearts. Call upon me. I will seal your wounds, so no Shirayuki suggests, and a moment later ice has formed over my wounds, halting the bleeding, even as I begin trading blows with Tythos, doing my best to avoid his claw. I am setting him up for my next move, but it will take a little time before I can tell if it is necessary. Around us the area is barren, and we are now fighting in a multiple kilometers deep crater, created by shockwaves caused by our blades' meets. My brother may have failed, but I will not, Tythos says even as I kick out, one of my boots smashing his knee, the claws on it ripping apart his upper leg and raking across the bone. He replies with the flat of his blade meeting my left arm, smashing the elbow into a ruin to go with the shoulder. Using Ransa Tengai, I force the arm to continue moving, readying to make my move. Yes, you will, I say, blade slashing across one of his heads, spilling blood from a cut above his eyes. I have a fully empowered Bankai, and it's time to use it to its fullest potential that I can, so far. Nowhere near mastering it, but I've gotten practice with my abilities. I am he who cannot be defeated, I state, and my strikes grow weaker, even as the aura around me changes color, a grin coming to my lips, hidden beneath my helm, even as Tythos' blade glances off my sword and halfway cuts off one of my feet. You might not be able to be defeated, but I will force a mutual kill, Tythos vows. Not going to happen, I say, forming my bow and putting an arrow into his knee. He growls, and I am forced to shunpo away from the sweep of his blade that would have disassociated my head and my neck. Let me show you why, I declare, then decide to do something I really wasn't anticipating actually needing, but will actually have to use, it seems. My bow changes, Reishi particles gathering along with Ryatsu, reforming the blade of Gonrimaru's Shikai from energy, though the blade isn't solid. It flares and shifts as I summon my next phase of power, my left hand flaring with light as I call upon Gonrimaru for a use no one ever would have thought of. I can use my Shinigami's Zanpakuto to call upon Resurrection, my Resurrection changing depending on the blade, so why not for this? What are you doing? Tythos demands. I answer with two words. Quincy. Volstandig, I declare, and a giant Quincy cross forms around me, lighting up the night sky. My armor changes as wings made of thundercloud spread from my back, light glowing around me as my armor, which now resembles the plate armor of an Avalon Knight, though rendered solely in white, forms, masking me entirely as I rise into the sky. My wings of storm clouds glowing with the same light, even as I furl the still immature wings I began growing after defeating the Balrog, hiding them within my armor. A cloak made of white fabric billows behind me, my armor inscribed with pentacles created from sigils of power, and those sigils spell out outward, 5 times in each pentacle. The name of my Volstandig. Remiel, I declare. Thunder of God, thunder crashes down as I prepare for battle, a long spear made of crackling lightning and Reishi in one hand, Kai no Ti no Megami's Bankai in the other. Thanks for watching this video. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support and follow the AEthereal Devastation for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story link in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.